American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 826, Riven vs. Loki. Who is the bad guy? Wayne Manor Hall. At the same time, Helena had already engaged the enemy. Frost Killer's freezing gun was recharged, and the azure light illuminated the ice spikes on her blue hair. A micro-grappling hook popped out of Helena's tactical belt, and the tungsten steel tip was nailed into the bracket on the top of the cave. The moment her body was in the air, she threw out 3 bad darts, one of which accurately stuck into the condenser interface of the opponent's freezing gun. Childish, Frost Killer used his left hand wearing a cryogenic glove to slap away the hidden weapon, but he didn't expect Helena to have already approached by the inertia of the swinging steel cable. Helena's knee hit the opponent's ribs hard, and the friction between the fiber battlesuit and the cryogenic protective suit produced a lot of static sparks. Bang! The next second, Frost Killer raised the freezing gun and blasted the opponent out again. Helena raised her arm to block, but was still hit hard. Enduring the pain, she bent her knees and slid across the icy ground and quickly stood up. Who is Raven Patrick? Just hand her over and we will leave this place, Frost Killer said to Helena in a cold voice. Don't even think about it. Helena shot another crossbow arrow. Frost Killer's blue hair flew in the air and sprayed frost mist. He received the freezing gun from the frozen man, and the humming sound of charging formed multiple echoes in the circular space. Helena's crossbow string was covered with ice crystals. She rolled to avoid the impact of the first ice waterfall and quickly hid behind the stone pillar. But Frost Killer's attack immediately followed. Frost Killer's metal boots drew a perfect arc on the ice surface, and the ice wall swept by the freezing gun forced the huntress back. The next second, Helena's quiver suddenly popped open, and 3 tungsten steel armor-piercing arrows penetrated the ice barrier that was being formed under the push of the hydraulic device. The second arrow released thermite at the moment of penetration, and the sudden high temperature vaporized the ice wall into thick white mist. Then the huntress rushed forward like a cheetah, but suddenly changed direction 2 meters away from the target. She had noticed the frost flowers condensed on the ground. That was the cryogenic mines laid by the Frost Killer. Helena's slender legs swept across the weapon rack, and 2 short knives flew up, one of which cut off the backup energy tube of the cryo gun. You made a mistake. Helena's voice was colder than the cryo gun. She used the inertia of the roundhouse kick to stab the second short knife into the right shoulder of the Frost Killer. I'm not the kind of soft persimmon that lets you mess around. I'm the huntress who will deal with you criminals. The Frost Killer, who was stabbed in the shoulder by a dagger, gritted her teeth and shouted angrily. Then her cryogenic glove suddenly released a ring of frost explosions. With a bang, Helena's tactical eyepiece was instantly covered with ice flowers. She leaned back with muscle memory and felt the absolute zero cold current tearing the fiber layer of the uniform on her chest. Because she was frozen, she was slow to move and was approached by the Frost Killer. The next second, with a bang, Helena, who was unable to react in time, was hit hard and flew out. After dealing with Helena, Frost Killer took a deep breath. She was about to move forward. But unexpectedly a black figure suddenly appeared from the front. Raven, wearing a hood, appeared at the critical moment, and a God of Swords shadowless curse flew towards Frost Killer. Although Frost Killer dodged in time, he was still hit hard on the other shoulder by Raven. Bang! Frost Killer, with both shoulders injured, fell to the ground helplessly. Covering her injured shoulder, she looked at Raven who was slowly walking towards her. I am Raven. Patrick, Peter's eldest daughter, my father's beloved daughter. Now, tell me, where's the black mask? I don't know what you are talking about, Frost Killer said stubbornly. And before she finished her words, she raised the freezing gun to Raven who was walking towards her. When the absolute zero rays sprayed by the freezing gun touched 10 centimeters in front of Raven, the dark purple energy vortex suddenly materialized into a palm-sized black vortex. The cold air that was enough to freeze the Gotham dock was compressed into a crystallized ice, which spun at Raven's fingertips and burst into dazzling light. Raven said coldly, it seems that you don't know how powerful I am. As the real eldest daughter of the Patrick family, I have inherited everything from my father. As long as I want, I can purge you Gotham scum at any time. Frost Killer stared blankly at Raven's operation in front of him. At the same time, The other Gotham villains also gathered around Raven. Poison Ivy controlled the plant vines and released plant spores to attack her. But the spores that controlled the mind disappeared the moment they came into contact with Raven's iron armor curse. Raven formed rune seals with both hands, and the magic tentacles penetrated into the plant roots. "Let me show you a real-life dialogue." She injected the power of dark magic into the plant vines underground, and the vines suddenly twisted into flesh and blood vessels, devouring Poison Ivy's vines. Bang! Poison Ivy was instantly knocked away by the plants created by Raven. On the other side, Bane, as Gotham's resident villain, also appeared here at this time. When Bane swung the giant hammer as a weapon, he roared in Hyder. The weapon he grabbed after being strengthened by venom could break the concrete slab, but it stopped 5 centimeters away from Raven's hair. "Do you think your strength is really strong?" Raven tapped her fingertips, and Bane's consciousness immediately became blurred. Then, in his shocked and unbelievable eyes, he saw that he suddenly began to grow in the opposite direction. He saw his muscle fibers shrink like a reverse plant growth documentary, and finally turned back into the starving boy in Santa Prisca prison. Seeing himself turn back into the miserable self of his childhood, Bane immediately screamed and fell to the ground. Other Gotham villains who knew Raven were immediately shocked. When did Raven become so powerful? Isn't Raven from the Teen Titans? Stop it! Just as Raven easily defeated Bane, a voice suddenly rang out. Then, in the eyes of everyone, Black Mask slowly walked over. Black Mask, who stood in front of many Gotham villains, walked directly to Raven, facing the hooded Raven, and greeted her. "Long time no see, my sister, I knew it was you." Raven looked at him coldly. "You defeated Horus?" "Loki, almost, but don't worry about him, he is fine now, but he has left as a loser. I didn't expect that we, Raven, would be the ones who are against each other in the end." Black Mask said with some emotion, "Remember? But when you were a baby, I set off fireworks for you, in my left hand, releasing colorful fireworks. At that time, you laughed very happily and called me brother." Loki, disguised as Black Mask, told Raven about the past. Hearing Loki say this, Raven was stunned. She remembered that it was true. But when she was still a baby, did she really call Loki brother? Raven was immediately immersed in memories. Just as Raven was immersed in memories, Black Mask suddenly raised his wand. The spell energy was instantly emitted from the wand. Raven didn't expect Loki to be so mean, and was hit by an enhanced version of fainting. She was extremely exhausted and fell to the ground with a thump. Raven, kneeling on the ground, asked him in confusion, "Why, Loki, you got one thing wrong, Raven. That is, good Loki can't have a good ending. Lokis in many parallel worlds all have bad endings because they try to be good people, but I'm different," Loki said to Raven with a complicated expression. "I can use despicable means because I am the king of tricks. I think Dad can understand this attribute of mine. As long as I can win, I can prove to him that I am his pride, so. I'm sorry, little Raven, I can only do this." "Really?" Raven looked at Loki's expression, shook her head and said, "I know Loki in the Marvel Universe. He likes pranks and is famous for his venomous tongue. His mood swings make it even more difficult to interpret his true thoughts. He is gloomy and sensitive inside, but emotionally fragmented. He has a strong desire for family affection, but is ignored by his father and others. Although he doesn't say it on the surface, he is in great pain inside, but you are different." After hearing this, Loki's expression behind the mask was a little surprised. "What's different about me?" Loki in the Marvel world wants to repent, but he doesn't have a suitable opportunity, so he can only make mistakes over and over again. He wants to change himself, but no one can trust him. If he wants to change, there must be someone who trusts Loki from the bottom of his heart and tolerates Loki, and then Loki will change. And now, there is already someone who loves you from the bottom of his heart, tolerates you, and is sincere to you, so you will never be a bad person if you are influenced by him." Raven looked into his eyes and said slowly, "When the god of lies has friends and people he loves, he is no longer the god of tricks who was once woven by lies. He began to change completely from the moment he had people he loved. Just like now, the spell you released did not output full power, and you subconsciously restrained your power." Before she finished speaking, Raven stood up suddenly, ignoring the influence of the fainting spell, and directly released a dark red energy shock to Loki. Bang! After being hit by Raven's spell energy, Black Mask fell heavily to the ground and groaned softly. The sudden scene at the scene shocked everyone. No one thought that Loki, who suddenly had the upper hand, would be defeated by Raven. The Huntress and Tim looked at each other in bewilderment. This guy was so careless that he was killed by Raven? Although Raven defeated Loki, there was no joy on her face. She raised her wand and released magic towards the face of Black Mask, knocking the opponent's mask away. She found that the other person's face was not Loki at all. Where did Loki go? Chapter 827 The End of Everything? Batman Returns. Raven was shocked that the guy behind the black mask was not the real Loki. Where she didn't notice, a pig-headed man among the many Gotham villains raised his wand in a place no one noticed. Professor Pigface is also one of the many villains in Gotham. His real name is Laszlo Valentine. He was originally a gifted chemist, but he suffered from split personality, which gave him a crazy new personality Pigface in his mind. In order to test chemical drugs on humans, he formed a strange circus and began to tour around the United States, leaving many mysterious disappearances wherever he went. As an almost obsessed perfectionist, the Pigface uses identity-destroying drugs and surgeries on his victims to make them hundreds of twins who only obey him. A few days ago, Professor Pigface disguised himself as a Jewish gentleman and killed some homeless people to harvest their organs. Later, with the help of some hired assistants posing as waiters, Professor Pig disguised himself as a chef and sneaked into the charity event of the Falcone family and the orphanage, making Sophia Falcone and other attendees eat meat patties made from the organs of the homeless. Loki, who got the news, managed to defeat Professor Pig and kill him, and obtain his mask. At this time, the real Loki had disguised himself as Professor Pig, ready to take advantage of Raven's relaxed moment. The black mask that talked to Raven before was just a puppet he prepared. The words that the other party said were also what he had taught the puppet before. The wand used by the puppet was cast by him on it with an enhanced version of the fainting spell, which would be released as long as it was raised and aimed at Raven. Everything went according to his plan, and Raven herself was deceived by his puppet. However, just when he was hiding under the mask of Professor Pig and was about to release the spell, he suddenly hesitated. What Raven said just now shocked him so much that Loki really began to doubt whether he was a good person or a bad person. What did his family and loved ones bring him? Did his father's love, family and friends really make him a different Loki? Loki, who fell into a state of confusion for a short time, hesitated and did not release the spell to Raven at the first time, so he missed the only chance. When Raven had reacted, Loki knew that he had no chance to defeat her. After hesitating for a while, he put away his wand and left here under the cover of many Gotham villains. Looking at Raven, Loki turned around with a complicated expression. Now he is not defeated, and there is still a chance. After quickly leaving Wayne Manor, Loki walked into a dim alley. The rain has completely stopped, and there is a damp smell of rain around. Loki, wearing the Professor Pig's head mask, had just taken 2 steps when a voice came from behind. Loki, do you still want to escape? Loki turned around with some surprise when he heard the voice, and saw Catwoman standing in front of him. Catwoman, Loki looked at her with some surprise. It's you, a lucky thief, you know me, Catwoman asked him vigilantly. Loki took off the pig head mask and said to her slowly, of course, I have taken control of the underworld of Gotham. I know all the dark things on the streets. Selina, your mother committed suicide and your father died of alcoholism. In order to survive, you wandered on the streets for a while. Soon you were caught and sent to an orphanage. And then to a juvenile detention center. In the juvenile detention center, you saw how cruel the world is. When you were 13 years old, you found that the administrator of the juvenile detention center embezzled funds and dealt with her. In an attempt to cover up the crime, the administrator stuffed you into a bag and threw her into the river, trying to drown you. You escaped and returned to the orphanage to steal files, trying to expose the fact that the administrator was corrupt. You used these materials to threaten the administrator and forced him to delete the name Selina Kyle from the city files. Then you stole the administrator's diamond necklace and escaped from the orphanage. Selina Kyle, you are just a girl from a miserable family who wants attention, and you killed Black Mask. You have a very flexible and ambiguous moral code. Loki's words stunned Catwoman. He had heard Peter say that Loki had a sharp tongue before, but he didn't expect that his sharp tongue was so powerful that she couldn't refute it at once. And what he said was completely exposing her scars. Seeing that Catwoman was stunned and unable to refute, Loki immediately raised his wand and prepared to release a fainting spell on Catwoman. But as soon as the spell of his wand was released, he saw a figure blocking Catwoman. The familiar figure blocked the spell released by Loki. The black cape squeaked in the night. The other party was dressed like Batman, but seemed to have more temperament than Batman. Dad, looking at Peter standing in front of him wearing a Batman uniform, Loki was stunned. His legs were shaking, and he couldn't help but say, "Dad, you're here, Peter." He was very confused. Who did Loki learn to say dad in Mandarin with a clear and fluent pronunciation? "I saw that you were very excited just now, digging up Selina's past history, combining it with what she did, and criticizing her from a commanding position. Loki, you seemed very impressive just now." No, Dad." Loki's head was covered with cold sweat. He glanced at Catwoman next to him and forced a smile on his face. "I was joking with Selina. If I don't show up, you're not joking," Peter said to him in a cold tone. "Also, I saw that you integrated the underworld of Gotham and let those well-known villains in Gotham be your subordinates. You seem to be more impressive than your father." "I just want to win the game, Dad." Although Loki was a little nervous, he still racked his brains frantically, thinking about how to answer to satisfy Peter. Now that his father appeared, his plan to lie dormant and prepare to attack Raven would definitely not work. The only way now is to admit that although his methods are a bit despicable, they are actually for training and tempering Raven and the others. "I just want to see you as soon as possible, and by the way, train Raven and Horus and the others." Loki quickly found a reason for himself, and said to Peter, "Raven and the others are my brothers and sisters. If I don't act like a bad guy and stop them, they will never grow up." Peter fell silent when he heard his words. "You dare to be a bad guy, and they should be grateful to you." A few minutes later, Wayne Manor. Raven was about to get rid of these Gotham villains and take them all to Arkham. Suddenly, a black shadow passed by outside the manor. The black bat shadow and the sound of bat wings opening appeared in front of everyone. "It's Batman." Scarecrow saw the shadow and immediately shouted in fear. He could feel that this was Batman. The real Batman. The huntress Helena on the side was also stunned. "That's Batman. Why do I feel familiar? The feeling of the mysterious sacred tree that appeared in my dreams." Chapter 828. The farm competition is over. Is Peter a god from some other world? No. That's impossible. The little bat is already dead. Harley Quinn stood up and said angrily, "The Batman outside must be fake." Harley Quinn raised her butterfly knife. "I will expose this fake little bat guy." Swish. The next second, the sound of the bat cape sounded, and Batman's shadow flew over from outside and rushed towards Harley Quinn. Harley's butterfly knife brushed Batman's throat, and then she lost control and fell backwards. "Hey!" Harley quickly stabilized her body and raised the butterfly knife to stab Batman. Dang! Batman's brass knuckles ejected high-voltage shock pads, blocking her downward blade, and a million volts of electricity rushed into her body along the metal blade. "Ah!" Harley screamed and fell down uncontrollably. Then Batman turned around and caught the poker dart shot by the Riddler in the shock of many Gotham villains. Turning quickly, Batman suddenly appeared and waved his cape. With a bang, the Riddler, who was unable to react in time, was hit hard and flew away. Scarecrow and Poison Ivy were about to fight back, but the next moment a batarang flew over, and the two had to retreat quickly. "No, you can't be Batman. Batman is dead." Poison Ivy looked at Batman indignantly, and immediately controlled a vine whip to tear through the air. Batman moved sharply and quickly, turning his head to avoid a deadly green shadow. The moment the whip tip brushed past his ear, the sheen chopped towards her knee joint like a battle axe. Poison Ivy didn't expect Batman to move so quickly, and she was shocked and wanted to step back. At the same time, vines rose from the ground, trying to stop the Batman from charging. But Batman's elbow had already hit her cross arm, knocking her back heavily. Bang! 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 In just a moment, all the Gotham villains gathered in Wayne Manor were killed by the suddenly appearing Batman. Even a guy like Killer Croc didn't last for a few seconds before his arm was broken and he fell heavily to the ground. After quickly dealing with these super criminals, each of whom was not simple in Gotham, Batman stood there, looking at the many super criminals groaning in pain on the ground, and said slowly in a hoarse voice, "I am the Knight. I am the messenger of revenge. I am Batman." Tim. The tense atmosphere before was completely destroyed by Batman's words. When did Batman become so second year? Dick on the side was completely stunned. The Batman in front of him was very similar to the Bruce Wayne in his cognition, in terms of both figure and temperament. Could the other party really be Batman? No. Dick immediately shook his head and denied this idea. Batman is dead, and he can't come back again. On the other side, Raven looked at the Batman who suddenly appeared and easily killed many supervillains in Gotham, and her heart was immediately excited. No one was more familiar with the Batman in front of her than her. Even though the other party was wearing a bat uniform and disguised himself as Batman, Raven still recognized him as Peter at first sight. She didn't expect that her father would travel to this world to see her. After not seeing each other for a long time, she was so excited that she wanted to throw herself on Peter and tell her father how much she missed him. But seeing that both the Gotham villains and Dick, Tim and others regarded Peter as Batman, Raven had to suppress her inner excitement. Resisting her emotions, Raven looked at Peter without blinking. After dressing up as Batman and defeating all the Gotham villains, Peter was about to talk to Raven when the alarm sounded outside. After hearing the alarm, Peter glanced at Raven, gave her a look that no one else noticed, shot the hook gun in his hand, and took himself away from the manor with a whoosh. Outside Wayne Manor, Gordon, who received the alarm call, quickly rushed into the manor with his men. Gordon entered the manor with his men and was stunned when he saw Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Scarecrow, Killer Frost, Man-Bat and many other prisoners who had escaped from Arkham lying on the ground. "What's going on?" Gordon, who was shocked, cast his eyes on Dick and asked him, "What happened? Who did it?" Dick shrugged and replied, "Batman did it." Batman? Gordon was stunned for a moment when he heard this answer. Batman is back. But this is impossible. Batman is obviously dead. Looking at the Gotham villains all over the ground, Gordon soon became suspicious again. Apart from Batman, he couldn't think of anyone else who could catch all these guys in one fell swoop. Besides, Nightwing didn't need to deceive himself. "Well, this is really the best news I've heard recently," as he said. Gordon asked his men to handcuff all the villains and send them to Arkham. Not long after, among the prisoners sent to Arkham Asylum, the news of Batman's return gradually spread outward, so that in the end, all the gangsters and criminals on the streets of Gotham knew about Batman's return. Before Peter left the manor, he winked at Raven. Noticing Peter's wink, she quickly left the manor and chased after Peter. On the rooftop of a nearby high-rise building, Raven followed the back of the manor and quickly followed. Looking at the back standing on the edge of the rooftop, Raven excitedly shouted, "Dad!" Batman turned around, took off the mask, revealed his true self, and opened his arms to Raven. "Long time no see, Raven." Raven flew over and threw herself into his arms, saying with a choked voice, "I miss you so much, Dad." "Dad misses you too." Peter stroked Raven's hair with his hand. "You did a good job, Raven. If according to Gwen's rules, the final winner should be Raven." And he has heard Catwoman talk about what Raven did. Although he really didn't expect that Raven would defeat Nightwing right away, imprison him, and then become Nightwing herself. He thought that Raven was the simple type who wouldn't do anything fancy. Unexpectedly, she tied up Nightwing in the blink of an eye. Although Peter did not advocate this kind of behavior, when he thought that Nightwing, the person involved, had no objection, he didn't want to pursue it, so he just pretended not to know. "No, Dad, I didn't do well enough." Raven was a little embarrassed when she was praised by Peter. "I was moving towards the goal of defeating others from the beginning, Dad. I just want to win this battle. I want to be your pride, let you see that I have the character you taught me, and I can inherit your cloak." Raven admitted that her purpose was not simple, and she regarded other brothers and sisters as competitors. Just like Dick, Tim, Jason and Damian want to inherit Batman's cape, we all want to inherit your cape. "It's not just me who thinks so, everyone thinks so." Raven let go of Peter's hand and asked him nervously, "Will you be angry with me, Dad?" "No, this is normal." Peter shook his head and said, "As long as it is a normal competition, I will certainly not be angry. At least you are all within the reasonable rules and have not really hurt others, right?" "Of course, except Loki," Peter added. "This guy has gathered all the villains in Gotham. Not only has he made Gotham a mess, but he is also preparing to attack you. I think I have to teach him a lesson and let him know the consequences of acting recklessly." Listening to Peter's words, Raven mourned for Loki in her heart for a second. This guy has been trying to make trouble behind the scenes, and now he has finally been punished by his father. "By the way, Raven, do you know where the others are?" "Azu and Boom, Star-Lord and others." Peter asked her about the whereabouts of Boom and others. "Yes, I know, they are with Gwen," Raven said to him. "Gwen said that after they quit, it is not appropriate for them to stay in Gotham. In order to prevent them from affecting the next war, Gwen shook them away, saying that she wanted to travel to different dimensional worlds and take them to see the Fantastic Four and Deadpool. Peter was immediately numb when he heard that Gwen took Bakugo and Horace to see the Deadpool. Strictly speaking, Bakugo and Horace are still minors. What if Deadpool, who is full of dirty words that are not suitable for children, teaches Bakugo and the others bad things? Peter's brows frowned immediately. On the other side, Catwoman was standing on the roof of a building not far away, watching Peter and Raven hug each other. Standing in the night, watching the warm moment between father and daughter, she felt a little complicated. The battle for the cape in Gotham ended just like that. The final winner was Raven, and the father she was hugging now was also Batman, her Batman. In a sense, Raven also took over her father's cape. Peter Patrick Catwoman exhaled and repeated the name. She had just seen him with her own eyes, easily dealing with many villains in Gotham and Wayne Manor. And as Batman. So the whole Gotham City would probably be spreading the news of Batman's return. But I don't know when the real Batman will return. Or maybe Peter is right, maybe Bruce is not dead, he will come back at some point, all she has to do is wait patiently. Loosening her clenched hands, she looked at a grain of sand on it. This was the sand that Peter had given her before. Although she didn't know what it was for, the other party asked her to keep it well, maybe one day she could use it. Clenching her fists, Catwoman felt the sand in her hands, which gave her a mysterious and extraordinary touch, and she began to associate it in her heart. Is Peter a god from a certain world? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 829 Return. Clark's Sorrow, the new father's sorrow. One day later. Peter, Raven and Loki have returned to the farm. Gwen also returned to Patrick's farm with Azu, Boom and others. Wayne Manor. Nightwing is talking to the huntress Helena. Stephanie, who had witnessed a fight between Loki and Horace, also appeared at the scene. Damian, whose injuries have recovered a lot, also appeared in Wayne Manor in full swing. Helena exhaled and said to Nightwing, "Now I know why I saw the Batman who looked like the sacred tree in my dream. It turned out that Batman was Raven's father." "Yes, Mr. Patrick, let the image of Batman reappear in Gotham." Nightwing glanced at Damian, Stephanie and Tim, and said slowly, "I will let the image of Batman continue to appear in Gotham and become the image that criminals fear." In the Batcave, the holographic image of Batman appeared in the air. Dick stared at the holographic image of Bruce in the Batcave and said to the image, "You always said that Batman could be anyone. Now, it's time to let it be me." He picked up the Batman mask on the table and put it on his face. He has now made up his mind to become Batman. Before, Dick always positioned himself as Bruce's partner rather than successor. As the first Robin, he escaped from Batman's shadow and became an independent Nightwing, but Bruce's death, Raven and Loki's battle, and Peter's Batman image, these are the things he experienced during this time. These experiences forced him to face a paradox: he must become the person he tried to get rid of. In the battle, he witnessed Jason's madness, Tim's persistence, Loki's pursuit of other brothers and sisters by using the Gotham underworld, and Gotham's loss of control, and finally realized, Nightwing can protect a city, but only Batman can save it. Helena looked at Nightwing's choice to become Batman and was slightly stunned. Then he asked him, "Why did you change your mind? Did Raven change your mind?" "It's complicated." Dick shook his head and said to the others, "The reason I initially refused the cape was full of contradictions. I was afraid that I could not reach Bruce's level, and I wanted to maintain my independence. But when Jason used tyrannical means to play Batman, I realized that if he did not take over, the symbol of Batman would be completely distorted. My choice was not to imitate Bruce, but to defend the essence of Batman, that is, the coexistence of fear and hope." Raven told me that she thinks the essence of Batman is fear and hope. Now I think she makes a lot of sense. I asked Raven before, what if Batman doesn't come back? Raven said that if she was really me, she would prove that Batman's beliefs are more eternal than flesh and blood. If she were me, she would become Batman and make Bruce truly immortal. Unfortunately, she is Raven, and she will only make her beloved father, Mr. Peter, immortal. Dick's expression became a little complicated when he talked about Raven, who once imprisoned him. Although the other party kidnapped him, Raven also had a profound impact on him. This girl from another world had a different view of his understanding of Batman. "Well, Dick, although you say that, as Batman's biological son, I think I have the hope of inheriting everything he has. Dick was talking when Damien came out unconvinced. Really? Dick glanced at him. Why don't we talk about you driving the Batmobile to pick up girls outside? Damien immediately stopped talking when he heard Dick mention his picking up girls. He looked at Dick with some indignation. You have been captured and imprisoned by Raven, so I can go out and pick up girls in the Batmobile. Isn't it okay? Damien expressed his contempt for Dick and secretly raised his middle finger. Although he was very unconvinced in his heart, he was afraid that Dick would punish him, so he had to shut his mouth and not speak. Smallville. Kent Farm. The golden morning light pierced the gaps between the corn leaves, and Clark's rubber boots sank into the soft soil. He raised his head and looked at the fields outside. The weather was good today. He could hear the rusty weather vane on the top of the barn a few hundred meters away, and see the spectrum of dew reflected on the fluff of the leaves. Jonathan Kent was steering the tractor. As he drove over, his eyes swept over the weed roots that were leaning here and there under his son's feet. The bullgrass that should have been dug up by the roots was now torn into pieces as if it had been torn by a hurricane. Is this your unique way of weeding, Clark? The father turned off the thumping engine, got out of the car, and crushed a piece of soil that rolled to the side of the track with the sole of his boot. Sorry, Dad, I was thinking about something just now, and I was a little distracted. Clark apologized a little embarrassedly. He thought of his godfather and Azu who had not returned yet. He looked up and saw his mother Martha Kent pushed open the door. Try the freshly baked apple pie. Martha placed a blue and white checkered porcelain plate on the oak stump, and the sweet aroma of honey rose with the steam. It uses apples from the old Johnson orchard. You must try it, it smells delicious. I must try it, Peter's voice suddenly sounded from outside. Clark heard the voice and turned around in surprise. It turned out to be Peter and Zoo. Godfather? Zoo. Clark didn't expect Peter and Zoo to come. He hadn't seen them for several days. You're a little tanned, Clark, Peter said as he walked over and hugged Jonathan and Martha. Zoo greeted Clark. Clark, I haven't seen you for a few days. I heard that you've been doing well recently. What? Clark was a little confused about what Zoo meant. I heard from Chloe that Louise spent the night at your house. When she tried to sneak out early in the morning, she was caught by Lana. Zoo showed a gossipy expression. What were you thinking? I mean, did you feel like you wanted to find a hole to crawl into? Clark, embarrassed, he quickly explained, no, of course I didn't. Louise just stayed at my place for one night. We didn't do anything. As for being caught by Lana, it was just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Really? Azu looked like you couldn't lie to me. Clark was instantly deflated. Okay, I admit that I messed up. I shouldn't have let Lana catch us. I wanted to ask the Godfather to deal with it, but you were not here, and I didn't even have anyone to talk to. Clark felt a little wronged. What game were you playing without inviting me? Is there still friendship between us? If you had invited me, Lana wouldn't have caught him and Louise. Now it seems even more impossible for him and Lana to be together. Seeing Clark's frustrated expression, Zoo patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. Don't worry, we all know that Lois Lane is Superman's ultimate partner. That's a parallel world, Clark retorted. There is no Godfather in the parallel world yet. Zoo narrowed his eyes. We all know that Lana likes Daddy, and you can't give her what she wants. Clark asked in surprise. Do you know what she wants? Of course I know. Lana has meteorite syndrome. She is deeply traumatized because her parents died in a meteorite disaster. This psychological shadow makes her desire security and pursue independence. What she wants most is to seek stable shelter. As for being attracted to Dad, it is an adventurous attempt attracted by his mysterious qualities, and Dad can also provide this kind of shelter. Zoo looked like he understood women very well. You two are really not suitable. On the other hand, this kind of woman is very delicate. Her delicate perception of emotions is both a charm and a burden. She needs constant emotional confirmation, and you can't meet this need. Because of your absolute loyalty to responsibility, you are destined to put collective interests above personal emotions. I wonder if you will be willing to give up your hero identity and live an ordinary life when Lana asks you to do so. But Louise is different. Azu patted Clark on the shoulder. When Louise appeared, her interaction mode with you was in sharp contrast. She teased your secrets but never forced you to confess, and echoed her heroic mission with her journalistic ideals. This equal and relaxed relationship contrasted the unsustainability of the tense state between you and Lana. Brother, give up. You are not suitable, Clark. This is the first time that Azu called him brother in person. Although it was a bit uncomfortable, Clark still stared at Azu suspiciously and asked him, "Where did you go?" He suspected that Azu had gone to another world and had a love affair with someone. "Did you go to the Black Robe world and have a love affair with the firecracker girl, Azu? Are you polite?" Clark was staring at Zu suspiciously, wanting to ask him what he had experienced. Lana was riding Tyson and happened to pass by Kent Farm. When she saw Peter appear, she immediately got off the horse, greeted Zu and Clark, and ran towards Peter. Clark saw Lana running directly towards Peter, and his heart became even more depressed. Although Zu was telling the truth, "Lana, you came up and hit yourself in the face, it's so uncomfortable." On the other side, Peter spoke to Lana, who came up excitedly to greet him. "Long time no see, Lana. I heard about you and Clark and Louise." Seeing Peter's ears pricked up in a gossipy expression, Lana was a little embarrassed. "That's just a misunderstanding. It has nothing to do with me, sir. It's Clark and Louise's business. I don't care." Lana immediately came up to distance herself from it, saying that it had nothing to do with her. Seeing Lana looking embarrassed, Peter stopped teasing her and started talking about other things. He lowered his head and glanced at his watch. The hands of the watch are now almost pointing to the end. After returning from the world of the Cape War, the clock has sped up a lot. Is the next Father of Sorrow coming? Chapter 830, Azu's Argument, the night when the father's worries come. I just don't know who will be the father troublemaker this time. I just hope that he will be someone with a less noisy personality, otherwise the farm will be in a state of uproar. No one was killed in this battle for the cloak, and he had to thank God for his blessing. After returning from Kent Farm, Peter focused on the news report. Padwick Farm. The atmosphere at this time was a bit weird. Loki was imprisoned in Asgard, the World Tree, by Peter because he had offended the public. As for Tom, although he was not imprisoned by Peter, he was still in trouble with Bombshell, Way, and Mark. Although they did not fight under Peter's power, Bombshell had completely hated Tom and gave him the title of Little Voldemort. She was ready to find an opportunity to fight Tom. As for the instigator of everything, Gwen, after being criticized by Peter for a while, she became a little listless. Reporter Emily Cottrell, tonight, the North American continent will see the most spectacular astronomical spectacle of the year. The Perseid meteor shower will reach its maximum value as scheduled. NASA astrophysicists have confirmed that the peak of this meteor shower is expected to reach 150 meteors per hour, setting a record for the best observation conditions in the past decade. The meteor shower preview was playing on TV. Hearing the meteor shower preview, Gwen came over, grabbed Peter's clothes, and stared at the TV screen without blinking. This meteor shower originates from the remnant of comet Swift-Tuttle. When the Earth passes through the dust belt left behind, interstellar particles at an altitude of about 60 kilometers will burn at a speed of 59 kilometers per second. Dr. Marcus Whitman, chief researcher at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, pointed out, this year, Jupiter's gravitational field has increased the distribution density of comet dust by 23%. We may observe more persistent fireballs, and the best observation points are the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the Great Lakes region, the Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado, the Natural Bridges National Monument in Utah, and Kansas, which are listed as golden observation areas. Listening to the news on TV, Peter frowned slightly. This meteor shower seems to have a larger range. I wonder if the father who came on the spacecraft will fly to other places when the meteor shower comes? Peter began to worry about the safety of the father. Is your other child coming, Peter? Gwen asked him with a blink of an eye. What? Peter looked at her. Why do you think so? Gwen, isn't this a matter of course? Gwen stood up straight. After all, your previous children were born this way. No, of course not. Peter shook his head and said seriously, they are all my biological children, but they were sent back by the time machine. Gwen looked at Peter suspiciously. Then according to what you said, would I be your daughter? After all, you exist in the long river of timeline. Is there anything in the world that you can do? Maybe you ran to the past and gave birth to me with my mother, Peter. Listening to Gwen's whimsical idea, Peter fell silent. I should not be interested in your mother. Didn't you say that the winner of the cloak battle will receive a large bonus? Peter asked her. Where's the bonus? Shouldn't I give the bonus to Raven? Gwen said as she took out a photo album. Look, here is also a photo album of my swimsuit, which is also a prize for the final winner. Peter looked at Gwen's breasts in the photo album and wanted to ask her, why are your breasts several sizes bigger in the photo album you took? Ahem. After coughing, Peter said to her, "Raven is not yet an adult. As a father and parent, I have to keep the money for her and give it to her when she grows up." Gwen was stunned when she heard what Peter said. "Is there such an operation?" "Yes, parents in China usually do this." Peter said that his behavior was very normal. Just at this time, Azu came in from outside the door. When he heard what Peter said, his expression was a little complicated. He opened his mouth and wanted to say that the money his father saved for him when he was a child had not been given to him yet. But when he thought about how his father might really give him a hard time if he really said that, because he felt embarrassed, he knew that his father cared a lot about his reputation. "What's the matter, John?" Peter saw that Zhu stood still, and his facial expressions kept changing, so he frowned and asked him, "Do you have different ideas about what your father just said?" "No, I just want to ask." Zhu pinched his waist, took a deep breath, and exhaled the air in his mouth like a big mushroom. "I want to ask, Dad, about the New Year's money." Peter nodded, stroking his beard with his right hand, and said to him, "Let's talk about the New Year's money later. Why don't we talk about your loss to Horus in Gotham's battle for the Cape?" Hearing Peter mention his loss to Horus, Zhu's expression instantly became a little embarrassed. With a fake smile on his face, he said to Peter, "I'm giving in to him, Dad. You know, as the eldest son of the family, I always care about everyone. I don't want to see my brothers and sisters fighting each other for an illusory promise." Azu said with a sincere expression, "I just did what a big brother should do. I'm not a hero, Dad. You are the real hero." Peter fell silent immediately. The other party's words made him not know how to respond. Just then, his cell phone rang. Peter picked it up and saw that it was Jane calling him. After talking to Jane, who is receiving breast cancer treatment in Gotham, Peter hung up. "Who is it?" Gwen asked curiously. "Jane Foster." "Jane Foster? Thor's girlfriend? Do you mean Natalie Portman?" Gwen's excited voice scared Siri, who had just come downstairs. Siri walked up curiously and asked, "Is she famous?" "Of course. Do you know how famous Natalie Portman, who plays Jane in real life, is?" In 1994, Natalie Portman made her official debut by starring in her first movie, Leon, the Professional, as the little girl Matilda. Gwen knew all of Jane's resume. In 1997, she played Padme Amidala in the science fiction movie Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. In 2000, she starred in the science fiction movie Star Wars II, Attack of the Clones. In 2003, she starred in the science fiction movie Star Wars III, Revenge of the Sith. In 2010, she won the 83rd Academy Awards for Best Actress and the 68th Golden Globe Awards for Best Actress in a Drama for her role as the heroine Nina in the movie Black Swan, becoming an Oscar winner. "She's the queen. I'm her fan." "No, I have to go see her." Gwen said she was going to Gotham to meet her idol. Chapter 831. The new father arrives. "Dad, my name is Teresa." "What is he talking about?" Siri asked Peter in confusion. "Why is Jane Foster Natalie Portman?" She listened to what Gwen said and felt a little incomprehensible. It made her wonder if Gwen had always been so crazy. "Is Natalie Portman famous?" "Yes, in a certain world, she is very famous. She is a very famous Hollywood actress, although I heard that her style is a bit problematic," Peter said vaguely, not knowing how to explain to Siri and Azu. "Explain that The Avengers is actually a movie, and the actress who plays Jane is Natalie?" It is estimated that Siri will not understand even if he explains it. "By the way, Gwen, I also like her Matilda." Peter quickly changed the subject and said to Gwen, "Aren't you going to Gotham to visit your idol? You can leave now." Then he handed a handwritten address to Gwen. It's the address written on it. Considering that the father's sorrow is about to come, Peter is worried that Gwen may cause trouble to him, so he plans to send her to Gotham. Lyra and Kara received Batman's help message and returned to the Injustice world to deal with the new villain crisis. Harry returned to the Hogwarts world and reunited with Sirius. His godfather said he had something to discuss with him. Hermione also followed Harry back to the Hogwarts world. Now the farm is rare and quiet, and only Siri and Gwen are left among the non-children. Considering the trouble Gwen might cause, Peter sent her to Gotham. As for Siri, Peter believed that this princess who had seen the world would not be surprised by the arrival of the new father warrior. "Really?" Gwen got the address happily and said excitedly, "I will definitely ask her to sign 8 or 10 autographs for me, specifically for my swimsuit photo album." Gwen said hello to Peter, Siri and Zoo, and immediately hurried out. "Are you sending her away, Dad?" After Gwen left, Zoo asked with some confusion. "No, I just fulfilled her wish. Peter shook his head and said to Zoo, we just mentioned your loss to Horace. Why don't we continue to discuss how you lost to him when you had the upper hand? Similar things have happened more than once, Zoo. Hearing Peter mention his loss to Horace again, Zoo's face suddenly turned bitter. Could it be that this matter will become his stain forever? No, I have to find an opportunity to fight Horace again, and then I will definitely wash away my shame. Zoo clenched his fists and thought secretly in his heart. At the same time, Smallville Middle School is holding preparations for the school anniversary. This year is the 40th anniversary of the establishment of Smallville Middle School. There are many people standing outside the school to attend the school anniversary. Lex Luthor, who has not appeared for a long time, is wearing a suit and standing in front of the statue, looking at the statue of the Crow of Smallville High School. Looking at the statue in front of him, he thought of his previous school life. He remembered that he was in school at that time and had friends. What he could not forget most was that he was discussing the latest comic, Why Black Diamond Fights War Angel, with his classmates, and he was pushed from behind. His hat also fell to the ground, and his bald head suddenly appeared in front of the students. And that abominable bastard mocked him as baldy. This is why he hates school. These words, whether malicious or unintentional, always hurt his self-esteem. Hey, Lex. Lex was looking at the crow statue in front of her and lost in thought, and Lana came over to greet her. The statue of our Smallville High School is a Belgian crow, which is completely different from your school. It's very unique, isn't it? Looking at Lana, who was in a good mood and had bright eyes, Lex smiled slightly. I would rather go to your high school. There are not too many intrigues between rich kids, nor is there that kind of natural competitive spirit. Lex quickly changed the subject and asked her, you are in a good mood. I guess you must have encountered good things, right? Lex has been running to Smallville recently and has become very familiar with Clark, Lana, Chloe and Louise. Well, maybe. I just met Peter at Kent Farm, Mr. Padrick? You mean? He's back. Hearing Lana say that Peter appeared at the farm, Lex was stunned for a moment. Yes, we talked for a few words. After listening to Lana, Lex was about to rush to Padrick's farm to meet Peter. Unexpectedly, the phone rang suddenly. Making an apologetic gesture to the other party, Lex walked to an empty corner and answered the phone. After discussing with a person on the phone, Lex changed his mind and did not go to the farm, but returned to his base in Metropolis. This is a meteor shower from the debris of Comet Swift-Tuttle. It will probably come early this morning. Because the range of the meteor shower is too large, it is quite difficult to observe it completely. The scientist in charge of the meteor shower observation said to him, our observation equipment cannot cover such a large area. There is no need to observe other areas. Just set the target on Smallville, especially Padrick Farm. Lex stroked his chin, watched the meteor shower simulation process on the screen, and said to the scientist, Dr. Rosenbaum, you said that this meteor shower, like the previous meteor showers, caused the problem of disorder of the geomagnetic field before and after the arrival, as well as abnormal activity of some sunspots. Yes, Dr. Rosenbaum said, handing a stack of documents to Lex. Every time a meteor shower comes, it causes some abnormal astronomical phenomena, and the range of each shower includes the Padrick Farm you mentioned. Lex took the document, browsed the information on it, and said in a voice that only he could hear, the time on it matches, and it matches the time when Mr. Padrick adopted the baby. In other words, Peter Padrick is very likely to have come from a meteor shower. He didn't say the next words. But with a frown on his face, he was already thinking about this possibility. Could it be that all of Peter Padrick's children are aliens? Lex fell into deep thought. He had complicated feelings for Peter. On the one hand, because Peter had saved him, he longed to get close to Peter's mysterious power, and on the other hand, he felt frustrated because he could not fully understand or control this power. For Peter, Lex has always regarded him as both a father and a friend. But he was very uneasy about this kind of emotion and relationship. He was eager to know the truth. He subconsciously believed that the hidden power in Peter's children was a potential threat to mankind. As a human supremacist, he firmly believed that humans must be protected by controlling or eliminating this power. Because of this emotion, he has been secretly investigating everything about Peter. In short, continue to observe, don't miss any suspicious points, and report to me at any time. After Lex instructed Dr. Rosenbaum, he left the laboratory with mixed feelings. At night, Peter said hello to Bomb and Wei, turned off the lights in the room, and returned to his room. The light in the room was a little dim, and Peter looked at the watch on his wrist. The watch hands had pointed to the end. It seemed that the arrival of the father's sorrow would be in the meteor shower tonight. He raised his head and looked at the clock hanging on the wall. The time had reached 10 o'clock. Sitting at the desk, he looked at his mobile phone. The mobile phone message reminded him that there might be showers in the Smallville area tonight, which would affect the observation of the meteor shower. Showers? Looking up at the dim sky outside, Peter frowned. For some reason, he always had a feeling of uneasiness. Although he didn't know why he had this feeling. Shaking his head, Peter closed the window and sat on the desk in front of the window. With his hand supporting his chin, Peter closed his eyes and took a short rest. Just after closing his eyes, he found himself near the world tree in the courtyard. The world tree exudes a soft and warm light, which can convey a gentle feeling to him even in his sleep. But soon she found something hidden behind the world tree. The other party's clothes were exposed, but soon they were quickly hidden behind the tree. Peter's mind moved slightly, and then a rustling sound was heard, and a snake appeared in the courtyard and quickly crawled towards the direction where the figure was hiding. Then a shrill scream of a little girl sounded. A black-haired little girl, about 4 or 5 years old, holding a doll, ran towards Peter with her eyes closed. The little girl, about 4 or 5 years old, was wearing a dark blue dress, a white apron and a red bow, and black leather shoes. The overall style was more like Victorian children's clothing, with a little retro-Gothic element. What surprised Peter the most was her black hair. The black hair was combed and spread out at the back of her head, and then combed into a single ponytail under her head. The exaggerated ponytail fell directly to her heels. The long-haired little girl wearing a pair of thick glasses ran directly to Peter and grabbed Peter's trouser legs with a crying voice. "Daddy, there is a snake." "Peter, what did you call me just now?" Hearing the other party calling him Daddy, Peter was stunned. Although he suspected that the other party might be the father of this time, he fell into a dream in advance. But he didn't expect the other party to be so direct, hugging his legs and calling him Daddy. After a moment of stun, Peter squatted down and looked at the little girl holding a doll. "Did you call me Daddy just now?" "Yes, you are Daddy." Chapter 832, Witch or Angel? Bayonetta. Peter looked at her thick glasses, then at the doll in her arms. Wait. Peter soon realized that the glasses she was wearing were a little strange. Why didn't the gold-rimmed glasses have frames to support her ears? Her glasses were glued to her face? Could it be a pair of magic glasses? Peter curiously took the glasses off the cute little girl's face and asked, "What kind of magic glasses are these?" "Glasses are not magic, Daddy." The little girl, who was hugging her thigh just now, immediately burst into laughter. "I can see monsters even without glasses." Peter, he didn't quite understand the little girl's train of thought, so he coughed and asked her, "What's your name, baby?" "My name is Teresa." "Okay, Teresa, can you tell Uncle how you got here?" "I came from home, Dad." "Then I guess your home must not be here at first, so can you tell me, Teresa, where your home is?" "Who asked you to come here?" "I don't know where my home is." Teresa blinked. "Mommy asked me to come here." "Then where did your mommy go?" "She went to work and then I couldn't find her." "Daddy, don't you want me anymore?" The little girl looked at Peter, holding the doll, and looked like she was about to cry. "I'm not your dad, at least not now, Teresa. Maybe you just came here accidentally." Peter patted her hair gently. "You may be back to your mom soon." He couldn't be sure yet whether this little girl named Teresa was a father-worried person who fell asleep in advance like Tom and Boom, or just a girl who accidentally broke into his dream. "Do you understand, Teresa?" "Yes, I understand, Daddy." "No, Daddy, don't cry." "Understand, okay, Daddy." "Peter, you little girl is still stubborn, right?" Peter, who felt a little headache, accidentally saw the doll in her arms. It was a kitten sewn with some old handmade thread, which looked very cute. "Is this your doll, Teresa?" Peter pointed at the doll she was holding and asked curiously. "Yes, Daddy." Teresa showed the doll in her hand to Peter. "Her name is Shiba Inu, and Mommy left it to me." It's very cute." Peter stroked the Shiba Inu with his hand, and then asked her, "Teresa, can you tell Dad what your mother's name is?" Seeing that the other party was stubborn at this time, Peter had to assume that he was her daddy. "I don't know." Teresa shook her head and bit her lips. "Mommy is called Mommy. Mommy is a witch. I want to be a witch like her in the future." Teresa made a gesture of opening her hands and made an imitative sound. "Witch?" Peter was stunned when he heard the other party say that. "It turns out that you have an extraordinary origin." Taking a deep breath, Peter said to her, In this case, Teresa, you come back to the room with me to rest. Maybe when you wake up, you will find that you are back to your mother." Peter turned and walked into the room. But before he took a step, Teresa grabbed the back of his clothes. "Daddy, can you play hide and seek with me?" Teresa looked at him innocently. "I'm a little scared. Usually when I'm scared, I close my eyes and count numbers, so I won't be scared. Will you not be scared if you play hide and seek?" It was the first time Peter heard this statement. "Yes, Daddy, if I find you while playing hide and seek, you are not allowed to leave me. This way, it's like we have signed a contract. I find you, and you become the only person I know. I mean, you are the only person I know in this scary place. So we have a relationship that will never separate. This is a ritual, a witch's ritual," Teresa said seriously. Peter was slightly stunned when he heard her childish words. Then Peter reached out and stroked her hair. Of course, Peter smiled at her. "You can try to find me." Hearing Peter's agreement, Teresa immediately ran behind the world tree, covered her eyes and counted. 1, 2, 3, crack. Just as Teresa was counting numbers, suddenly, a thunder sounded. The next second, Peter suddenly woke up from his sleep. The familiar windowsill appeared in front of him, and the world tree and the little girl had disappeared. "Are you awake?" Peter stood up and looked outside, and found that thunder had sounded. At this time, it was raining outside. He looked at the clock on the wall. The time has already pointed to 12 o'clock, and the meteor shower is about to come. Thinking of Teresa in the dream, Peter walked out quickly. Heavy rain fell along the skyline, and the whole town turned white in an instant. At this time, Lex, who was driving towards the town, looked at Smallville covered in rain and hammered the steering wheel heavily. Damn it, he had planned everything, but he didn't expect that the heavy rain would come at such a critical moment. In this way, his observation plan was completely ruined. "I don't know when I will have such an opportunity next time." Just when he was secretly annoyed, he accidentally skidded the car and rushed to the side of the road. Because of the slippery road caused by rain, the car was somewhat out of control. Although he tried hard to control the steering wheel, the car still rushed to the side of the road uncontrollably. Bang! In the heavy rain, the car broke through the railings on the side of the road and rushed directly into the river. Lex's body was thrown out of the car, and the moment he fell down, he saw the sky begin to rain meteors. In the middle of the night when the rain was as heavy as ink, a silver snake like lightning split the sky. The clouds were rolling like a boiling sea of lead, but at a certain moment, they were torn open by a red fire meteor. The first burning meteor, wrapped in the smell of sulfur, penetrated the rain curtain, like a lava spear thrown by the gods, evaporating the entire rain curtain into pale mist. A dull boom sound entered his ears. Plop! As his body fell into the river, the biting coldness instantly attacked him. He saw the nearest meteor, a meteor with a comet tail, drawing a twisted trajectory in the heavy rain and falling towards the position near Patrick's farm in front. Then more meteors fell. The ground trembled and cracked into spider-web patterns. Fist-sized meteorite fragments hit the water surface, and the instantly evaporated white steam wrapped in mud soared into the sky. A whole piece of meteorite the size of a house was embedded in the windmill with a bang, and the windmill blades rotated and flew into the air, cutting the rain curtain into spiral water mist. After falling into the river, Lex gradually lost consciousness. I don't know how long it took, but I only felt that his senses and consciousness were disappearing. He could feel that his life was slipping away quickly. Just when he thought his life was about to end here, a black torrent rushed over. The black torrent seemed to be made of hair, rushing over and rolling him up. Then a substance made of long black hair seemed to have life and pulled Lex out of the water and put him on the shore. Lex, whose consciousness was a little blurred, seemed to see an angel emitting warm light, stretching out his hair from the river and pulling him to the shore. The angel emitted a soft light, so that he could not see the specific appearance of the other party. But he could feel that breath. Angel, after a murmur from his mouth, Lex fell to the shore and fainted directly. On the other side, Teresa's hair suddenly grew in volume. After pulling Lex up, she was about to fall down in a daze. She remembered that she was playing hide and seek with her daddy, and suddenly woke up and found herself in a strange place. The rainy sky was particularly dark. She was a little scared and quickly got out of the iron lump. She didn't know what it was. She shouted, "Daddy, don't hide, I can't find you," and walked forward helplessly in the heavy rain. Until she saw Lex fall from the car, she didn't know what was triggered, and her hair seemed to have consciousness and rushed towards the stranger in the river and pulled him up. Suddenly, because of the burst of power, she couldn't bear it and fainted directly. Just when she was about to fall, Peter, who had been looking for the new Father Sorrow spaceship, finally rushed over and picked her up. Seeing Peter holding her up, Teresa smiled on her weak face. "Daddy, I found you." "Yes, you won, you found your dad." The expression on Peter's face at this time was quite wonderful. Combined with the information the system just transmitted to him, and the fact that he saw the other party's hair grow wildly, Peter already knew the other party's identity completely. Bayonetta, the Bayonetta. That is the witch whose legs are taller than ordinary people and whose limbs are equipped with guns. Bayonetta, who makes the enemy bow down with gorgeous movements. He didn't expect this woman to come. If this kind of Bayonetta can explode, she will be finished if she fights. Bayonetta, the protagonist of the action game Bayonetta, is a witch with black hair. Bayonetta is one of the survivors of the Shadow Witch, a race of humans who can use magic. She was born on December 19, 1411, and works as a nun. In terms of fighting, the opponent will use a set of 4 guns equipped on both hands and legs, and combine them with martial arts to attack. In addition to guns, Bayonetta also uses weapons such as swords and whips, and can even summon torture instruments and monsters with her hair. Her outfit, clothes, is actually woven from her own hair, and some weapons or equipment can be hidden in her hair, such as the sure blade. And because of the contract with a Madame Butterfly of the demon world, her shadow will reflect the shape of a butterfly. No wonder the name Teresa is so familiar. Sister Bay's real name is Teresa. Chapter 833. Will I be executed gracefully by her? But soon he thought of a more complicated problem. That is the problem of Bayonetta's inappropriateness for children. Peter remembered that her hair was magic, and the clothes on her body were all made of hair. Generally, when fighting, Bayonetta would pose in a graceful posture, chant a spell to punish the boss, and part of her hair would leave her body and turn into a monster bigger than the boss. After that, you will find that only a few strands of hair are left on Bayonetta's body, just covering the key parts. In the future, during the battle with the enemy, if Bayonetta's clothes explode again, won't she be completely seen by others? Even if she will not explode under the influence of his own teaching, if she finds that the magic power is not enough in the end of the battle, won't the clothes explode again? Because her clothes are made of hair, once the magic power is not enough, the shape of the clothes cannot be maintained, and it is estimated that the clothes will explode passively at that time. He remembered that at the end of each battle, when it entered the white-hot stage and the contracted monsters needed to appear in the battle, the clothes woven from Bayonetta's hair would disappear, leaving only strands of hair to cover the key parts. Peter, who felt a little headache, hugged Teresa, who didn't look like the popular Bayonetta in the future, and fell into headache-inducing meditation. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. Peter used magic to dry the rain on her body and took off his coat to cover her. Looking at Rex lying on the riverbank and being drenched by the rain, Peter released the rune to remove the water stains on the unconscious other party, and then used magic to move the other party under the bridge. Holding Bayonetta, Peter recalled the information about the other party that he knew in his previous life. According to the setting, Bayonetta is indeed a father-worried person. Bayonetta's father, Baldur, is the biggest villain in Bayonetta. 500 years ago, in Vigrid, Baldur, who belonged to the Lumen Sage clan, and Rosa, who belonged to the Shadow Witch clan, met one day. The two became lovers and had a tryst in private. As a proof of their love, Baldur gave Rosa a lipstick as a token. Later, their child, Teresa, was born. This was known to both clans, which led to the confrontation between the two clans. Teresa was arranged to live in the Shadow Witch clan, while Baldur and Rosa were separated and could not see each other from then on. Baldur was invaded by evil forces. After that, Bayonetta went through many battles and walked to the final boss. Finally, the boss took off his mask and revealed his true identity to Bayonetta, that is, he was Bayonetta's biological father. Baldur stated his plan: awaken the left eye, resurrect Jabirs, the evil god, and unify the world. Facing her biological father who had become the final boss, Bayonetta resolutely drew her gun. In the end, the two fell from the building together. Bayonetta shot Baldur's forehead with a lipstick given to her by her mother Rosa, and executed her father. Although her father has become an evil god, she was able to resolutely draw her gun and execute her father. This is the real father worry. Peter was a little doubtful at this time, whether he would become a villain in the future. Will Bayonetta, who has an upright character, choose to kill herself with a gift she gave him? Peter began to think about this somewhat serious question. With his current powerful strength, Could he really trigger the father's sorrow buff and let her execute him? No. It's not impossible. After all, the enemies this witch has faced have always been the Demon Lord, the Evil Lord and the Creator God. He may not be able to stop them. Forget it, let's talk about it later. Peter shook his head, forced himself to stop thinking about it, hugged Teresa, and quickly flew to the spaceship that brought her. At the same time, he called Siri and asked Siri to send the unconscious Lex to the farm. Peter, who was holding Teresa, suddenly thought that Bayonetta herself had seen Teresa when she was a child. Hundreds of years ago, in order to protect Teresa, her good friend Jean sealed her at the bottom of the lake, allowing her to escape the destruction of the Shadow Witch camp. Bayonetta woke up in modern times a few centuries later, but lost all her memories and forgot her real name, which is why she used the name Bayonetta. During a mission, Bayonetta met her childhood self. Since Bayonetta had lost her memory and Teresa regarded Bayonetta as her mother, because the adult Bayonetta and Rosa look very similar, neither of them knew the other's true identity. The little lolly Teresa then hugged Bayonetta, her future self, and shouted, "Mommy. I called myself Mommy?" Teresa has made history. In view of this history of crossing, Peter began to think, which world's Bayonetta is Teresa? Just like before, Teresa crossed to the modern world, met Bayonetta, and waited for her to return to her own world, so she created a new parallel world. The originally lonely and shy Teresa felt the love and courage of her grown-up self, which made her not depressed during the witch hunting, but worked together with her good friend Jean to block the attack, and finally she was not sealed at the bottom of the lake. This new parallel world is the world where Bayonetta is in the third part of Bayonetta. Unlike the classic version of Bayonetta, the Bayonetta in this world is more optimistic and energetic. Peter pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. Perhaps Bayonetta, who entered his own world, opened up a new parallel world, and a unique Bayonetta was born. Holding Bayonetta, Peter quickly came to the spaceship that brought her here. The spaceship crashed into a cornfield not far from the farm, smashing a huge hole in the ground. There was steam coming out of the hole, and the black spaceship emitting misty hot air was docked inside. Peter found a doll that was exactly the same as the little Shiba Inu in Teresa's hand. Taking the doll gently in his hand, Peter felt a powerful power emanating from it that made him a little afraid. According to the information the system told him, there was a demon with extraordinary power in this doll. A demon from the demon world? A gift from the system. Peter remembered that according to the original world line, the little Shiba Inu was originally a ragdoll sewn by Teresa's mother Rosa, symbolizing the warm bond between mother and daughter. In Teresa's lonely childhood, it was the only companion to accompany her. To save her imprisoned mother, Teresa ventured into the Forbidden Forest Avalon and accidentally summoned a demon from the underworld when she was attacked by fairies. The demon possessed the Shiba Inu doll, giving it the ability to fight in a physical form and becoming Teresa's protector. Just as Peter was recalling his original memory, the Shiba Inu doll in his hand turned into a stream of light and flew to the Shiba Inu doll in Teresa's hand. In Peter's surprised eyes, the demon entered the doll in her hand and became her patron saint. Chapter 834 The Big and Small Witches Meet for the First Time, Mommy and Daddy. Demon from Hell. Peter was slightly stunned when he saw the demon enter the Shiba Inu doll in Teresa's hand. Then he slowly reached out his hand and touched the Shiba Inu doll. The moment his skin touched it, a mysterious, powerful and intimate feeling spread throughout his body. It seemed that a mysterious power could be used by him. Holding the Shiba Inu doll, Peter learned from the system that the ownership of the Shiba Inu doll belonged to Teresa, but at the same time he also had the ability to control it. In a sense, this should be the gift that the system gave to him when Teresa came. It's a pity that Teresa is still too young to awaken her powerful magic to drive the Shiba Inu doll. The Shiba Inu doll is just an ordinary doll for Teresa. Holding Teresa, Peter stuffed the Shiba Inu doll into the arms of the sleeping Teresa, glanced at the dark night in the distance, and then released magic to control the spaceship to fly towards the barn. Now in the basement of the barn, there have been several spaceships hidden before, and now there will be another spaceship to witness the arrival of Teresa. Peter took a look at Teresa in his arms, turned over and continued to sleep soundly, and wiped the rain off her thick glasses. Before, he was worried that if the new father troublemaker had a bad personality, he might conflict with other brothers and sisters. But now it seems that Teresa should be fine when she was a child. When she grows up and becomes Bayonetta, her personality will become an iceberg queen, which is a matter for the future. At the same time, Teresa entered the dream world again. She didn't know where she was walking, and when her deerskin boots sank into the mud, the little Shiba Inu in her arms suddenly exploded. For some reason, the little Shiba Inu in her arms came to life. Although it felt a little strange at first, she soon accepted this setting. Perhaps it was because so many things happened recently that she became immune. Teresa looked down at the crimson moon reflected in the sewage. This was definitely not the color of the forest, she knew. Be quiet, little Shiba Inu. Lolly pushed the restless puppet into her cloak, her knuckles brushing against the protruding teeth at the seams. The wounds she had been scratched by the thorns in the forest were still bleeding, but the demon-possessed puppet was abnormally docile at the moment. Walking in the unfamiliar forest, she called out softly. Daddy, are you here? Teresa, who didn't know she was dreaming, hugged the little Shiba Inu tightly and walked in the unfamiliar forest, until she saw a dilapidated building in front of her. After hesitating for a moment, Teresa climbed up the collapsed stairs, her lace skirt sweeping over the thorns covered with crystals, and those crystals were flickering with her breathing, like the pulse of some living thing. The stained glass windows were suspended above her head, forming a broken rose window. Teresa recognized the pattern of one of the stained glass windows, a unicorn bound by iron chains, the same as she had seen in the Witch Elders' Council. Where is this? Little Shiba Inu? Teresa asked the little Shiba Inu in her arms in a low voice. She still couldn't change her habit of talking to the little Shiba Inu, even though she knew that the little Shiba Inu in her arms suddenly came to life today. Just as she was walking in this ruined building, suddenly a black substance flowed over her ankles. And some kind of sticky black substance wrapped around her calves. The little Shiba Inu suddenly broke free from her arms and jumped into the air. The doll's body suddenly swelled into a 3-meter-high monster in the moonlight, and the burning mane exuded a burning smell in the air. Teresa stared blankly at the little Shiba Inu in front of her, and suddenly it turned into a huge monster in front of her. Why can her little Shiba Inu doll not only talk, but also turn into such a huge monster? Teresa immediately fell into a dazed expression. Is she dreaming? Teresa held the corner of her clothes nervously, and kept praying in her heart, Daddy, come and see me, my little Shiba Inu has turned into a monster. Just as she was praying, a sound came from the ruined church. Then, in the eyes of Teresa, she saw a woman stepping on an upside-down cross and falling from the sky. Are you lost, little cutie? The adult Teresa, Bayonetta, appeared in front of her. At this time, Teresa didn't know that the long-legged beauty who appeared in her dream was her future self. In her stunned eyes, Bayonetta took off her butterfly-shaped sunglasses with a crisp sound of the high heels crushing the last crystal. Her black vinyl tights flowed with a luster of liquid metal, and the blood-red rose tattoo spreading from the neckline wrapped around the collarbone and finally disappeared under the holster straps on the right shoulder blade. The most eye-catching thing was the pair of ruby earrings, each corner of which reflected the blurred brilliance in the night. Mommy, Teresa took a half step back and then shouted in surprise, Mommy, I finally see you. The woman in front of her made her feel unusually kind and familiar. The feeling she gave her was just like the first time she met Peter. Because of this soul and even blood connection, she subconsciously thought that her mother had come. Although she hadn't seen her mother for a long time and her mother might have changed a little, she would never forget this feeling. Hearing the other party calling her Mommy, Bayonetta herself was stunned. What the hell is this? Shaking her head, Bayonetta slowly walked towards her. Bayonetta, who has a pair of exaggerated long legs, exudes a different kind of charm. And she is not wearing any clothes. The magic hair wrapped around Bayonetta is weaving into a shameful spider web in a posture that violates the laws of physics, but deliberately leaving a gap at the waist and hip curve that makes people's faces and heartbeats. When Bayonetta chuckled, the chain-like decoration wrapped around her left leg made a small collision sound. Her stiletto boots are inlaid with skull reliefs, but she is as silent as a cat when she walks. Teresa's eyes were forced to be nailed on the pair of trembling fingers with her steps, which formed a cruel contrast with her flat body that has not yet fully developed. Bayonetta came over, grabbed Teresa, and took a look at the monster transformed by the little Shiba Inu next to her. Let me guess, when the adult witch leaned over, Teresa saw the inverted cross mark on her neck, which was the mark of a traitor to the witch clan. Have you entered the Avalon Forest and obtained the power of the devil? Bayonetta's lazy movements made Teresa feel a little embarrassed. Then Bayonetta pointed at the little Shiba Inu monster on the ground that made a woohoo sound. Bayonetta's body temperature came through the gloves. The hollow leather wrapped around her slender fingers was releasing magical fluctuations that made Teresa feel familiar. The little Shiba Inu's demon form was about to explode, but Bayonetta pressed her lipstick against her forehead. The scarlet color of the lipstick drew a seal in the air. "Be quiet, bad kitty." The witch liked the lipstick that had overflowed from the corner of her lips, and this action made her lip line even sharper. "Did your master teach you etiquette?" She shook her long hair and turned around, and the black python transformed from the ends of her hair instantly attacked the huge monster. Bang! As she moved, the huge cat-shaped monster that was hit suddenly turned back into a small Shiba Inu doll. Then her fingers painted with black nail polish suddenly pinched the ears of the small Shiba Inu. "This little guy has a bad temper. Let's talk about what happened just now. Did you go to the Avalon Forest?" "I haven't been to the Avalon Forest, Mommy, and I don't know why the little Shiba Inu suddenly turned into a huge monster today," Teresa whispered. "I remember playing hide and seek with my daddy, and then I was suddenly here." "Mommy, can you take me to my daddy?" "I'm not your mommy." Bayonetta squinted her eyes and exhaled. "What do you mean by daddy just now?" She didn't remember seeing her father when she was young. As an adult, Bayonetta's memories of the past have been awakened. When she saw Teresa in her dream, she immediately recognized that this was her childhood self. Although she didn't know why she met her childhood self in her dream, considering that she had traveled through time more than once before, she thought it was the result of the disorder of the timeline. Or maybe it was just a dream. "Dad is dead. There's a big tree in Dad's house. I used to hide behind the tree to play hide and seek. And the tree on the farm is bigger than any tree I have seen in the forest." Teresa asked her curiously, "Mommy, are you going to meet Dad? Will you two get married and live together?" "No." Bayonetta was silent for a moment, shook her head and turned away. This relationship was a bit confusing, and she was temporarily unable to sort it out. It was not until then that Teresa saw the clothes behind the other person. The deep V backless dress was half hidden by the cloak woven with hair, which made her blush a little. Bayonetta's waist chain was decorated with miniature pistol models, which jingled as she walked. "Wait." Seeing that she was about to leave, Teresa hurriedly chased after her. "Mommy, don't you want to see Daddy? My father is not him, and if this is not a dream, we will meet one day." She put on her sunglasses again, and the purple crystals inlaid on the temples covered her suddenly dark pupils. "Goodbye, little lady. Remember to take good care of your little Shiba Inu." "No." Mommy. Teresa, sweating profusely, woke up suddenly from the bed, calling Mommy. What came into view was a strange room. In the slightly warm room, she saw Peter coming over with a cup of hot water. "Are you awake?" Peter came over and handed her the hot water. "Drink some water, Daddy." Teresa did not take the cup of water, but hugged Peter all of a sudden. The aura on Peter was the same as that on Mommy. The sense of closeness and dependence, as well as the connection in the soul, made her have no doubt that the other person was her father. Chapter 835. My name is Bayonetta. Daddy gave me a name. Being held by Teresa, Peter was slightly stunned for a moment, then he gently hugged her and whispered to comfort her, "I'm here, Teresa, don't worry, I won't leave." "Daddy, I just met Mommy." After holding Peter for a while, she let go and said to Peter, "Mommy said we will meet again." Then she looked at the Shiba Inu doll in her arms. Seeing that the Shiba Inu doll was motionless, she was a little disappointed. "Mommy? Can you tell Daddy, Teresa, what Mommy looks like?" Peter asked Teresa. He suspected that the mother she saw was not the real mother, but Bayonetta. After all, she had done similar things before. "Mommy is Mommy, the witch that Teresa wants to be when she grows up." Teresa tilted her head and said, "Daddy, will you live with Mommy?" Faced with Teresa's question, Peter hesitated for a moment, not knowing how to answer. "It depends on the future, but Dad believes that we will meet one day." Peter handed her the cup of water. "Drink some water." "Okay, you all say that. If I drink the water, we'll get and Mom meet." "No, it won't be that fast, Teresa, but maybe your cup of water will work. After all, you are the one who will become a witch, right?" Hearing what Peter said, Teresa immediately took the cup and drank it happily. But soon a frustrated expression appeared on her face. "What's wrong, Teresa? I just saw the little Shiba Inu move, but now it's motionless again." Teresa said a little frustrated. "Am I dazzled, Dad?" Peter listened to her words and was a little dazed. He didn't expect Teresa to be so sensitive that she could dream that the little Shiba Inu was alive. No, dreams are the projection of our wishes, and also the place where wishes come true. Maybe one day the little Shiba Inu will really become a guardian angel to protect you. "Okay, Teresa, it's getting late, go to bed early." Peter covered Teresa with a sheet and let her rest. After tossing and turning all night, it was already 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. Okay, good night, Daddy. Teresa took off her glasses, said good night to Peter, and got into bed. This daughter is unusually familiar. Although she will be a well-known cold queen fan in the future, Teresa now has completely become cute and has a big heart. She was sent here by the spaceship, but she didn't cry or to make a fuss, and didn't care where she was. She just fell asleep. With such a big heart, no wonder she could cause so many troubles later and still have an optimistic attitude. Patting her quilt gently, Peter put the little Shiba Inu doll next to her pillow, and then turned and left. The rain outside began to subside, and the rain that lasted for half a night finally ended. The next day, early morning, when Peter brought the sleepy Teresa downstairs, Raven and the others were stunned. As he looked at the cute girl hiding behind Peter, wearing glasses and a long ponytail, holding a doll in her arms, with some shock. This is my father picked up another alien. Even though he was used to it, as he was still in a daze. I have another sister. Raven was upset when she saw the new Teresa, but when she thought about this little lolly who looked like a human, animal, witch, she seemed to be picked up by her father innocently, so her upset gradually faded. The little girl is innocent. She thought secretly in her heart. Boom, on the other hand, was angry and showed her expression on her face. One little nameless was enough. But she didn't expect that another little lolly would pop up at the end. She is Teresa, also called Bayonetta, and she will live with us in the future. Peter gently patted Teresa's shoulder and asked her to say hello to everyone. The somewhat shy Teresa stood in front of Peter and shyly greeted everyone. Hello, I'm Teresa. Although she was a little confused about why her father called her Bayonetta, she didn't ask any more questions. There were a lot of people in the living room, and she was a little embarrassed to ask. Boom looked at the shy little lolly and the magical glasses on her face, and asked her curiously, are you a magician, Teresa? No, I'm a witch. Teresa raised her chest slightly. Really? Can you show us? Hearing the other party's request, Teresa immediately wilted like an eggplant hit by frost. I'm learning, she said to Boom a little embarrassedly. Of course Teresa is a witch. After coughing, Peter stood up to support his new daughter. Look at this, ordinary people can't wear glasses on their faces without glasses support frames. Peter took off Teresa's magical glasses and said to everyone, this is not something ordinary people can do. Teresa, why do I feel like Dad is joking? Azu and the others also fell into silence after listening to Peter's words. People were used to Peter telling jokes from time to time at such an old age. Dad, can you give me back my glasses? Teresa next to him asked Peter in a low voice. Of course, Peter put the glasses on Teresa himself and looked at her. Well, she looks a bit like Bayonetta in the future. Peter was introducing Teresa, and Lex, who was sent to the farm by Siri, finally woke up from his daze. Covering his forehead, which was a little painful, he came out of the room and saw Peter and Teresa standing at the stairs. The moment he saw Teresa, the scene of falling into the river last night came to him. He remembered that he rushed into the river because of the car out of control. Then, when his life was in danger, an angel with a warm and soft light saved him. Now seeing Teresa with long braids, he immediately thought of the angel yesterday. The aura emanating from Teresa was exactly the same as that of the angel who saved him. When he heard Teresa say that she was a witch, he was stunned. A witch? Why not an angel? He was a little suspicious whether she was the angel who saved him last night. Are you awake, Lex? Peter saw Lex coming downstairs and came over to greet him. Yes, thank you, Mr. Patrick. I remember falling from the bridge into the river last night. Sir, did you save me? Lex pretended to know nothing and asked Peter in confusion. No, it wasn't me. When I arrived, you were already lying on the river bank. It was obvious that someone rushed over before me and saved you. Peter shook his head and said to him. Although he would not expose Teresa, he would not take credit for his daughter's work as his own. Is that so? Lex nodded and cast his eyes on Teresa who was next to Peter. Teresa pulled Peter's clothes and looked at him a little restrained. This town is always full of mysteries. It seems that there is one more unsolved mystery about the town today. Lex shrugged his shoulders and pretended to be helpless. Are you feeling unwell? Lex, do you need to go to the hospital for a checkup? Peter saw that he was not in a good mental state and asked him. No, I'm fine, thank you, Mr. Patrick. He took 2 steps closer to Teresa and asked her, Baby, can I know your name? Teresa, but I prefer you to call me Bayonetta, Because this is the name my dad gave me, Teresa glanced at Peter and said to Lex with a smile. Bakugo on the side, she was immediately numb. Unexpectedly, the new Teresa was not a good person. Lex did not notice the different expressions of Bakugo and Raven and other father-worried people. After repeating the name Bayonetta in a low voice, he remembered it firmly. He had to find out whether Bayonetta rescued him last night. And whether the other party was a witch or an angel. A week later. The backyard of the farm. Bomb, Wei, Mark and Horace watched Teresa's performance. Bomb held her double pistols in her hands. Teresa stepped on the fallen stone with one foot, and raised her left leg above her head at an angle that violated ergonomics. The carved barrels of the double guns reflected the glimmer of cold sweat. Smoking, she imitated the smoke in her memory and uttered the word, and stepped back the moment she pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 The bullets shot towards the target. Then, in the stunned eyes of Bomb and the others, Teresa put the handle of the gun against her waist to complete the reloading. After that, her movements were fast and sharp, splitting and flipping in the air, so that the trajectory of the bullets intertwined into a pattern and shot out. The little lolly's ha-ha still had the unique clarity of a girl, but it did not prevent her from stepping on the stone under her feet, leaning back slightly, and posing a handsome execution pose. After firing the bullets, she also posed a pose with the double guns crossed against her chin. Seeing Teresa's exaggerated and somewhat unrealistic shooting movements, Bomb and the others were all stunned. Teresa has been very interested in her gun recently, so Bomb lent it to her. Today she said she wanted to perform, so Bomb dragged Wei, Horace and Mark to watch. Unexpectedly, Teresa's movements were so exaggerated. "Teresa, are you dancing or shooting?" Bomb asked with some doubt, looking at Teresa who was still posing with some uncertainty. And the dance she was dancing was a bit embarrassing. "I'm shooting." Teresa put away her two guns and said to Bomb, "Shouldn't girls move elegantly and handsomely?" Hearing each other's words, Mark and Horace looked at each other. Not only is Teresa's shooting talent extraordinary, but her personality also seems to be a little different. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 836. It turns out that this little Shiba Inu is also a fool. "But will this really help your shooting?" Boom asked doubtfully. "I don't know, but I like it this way." Teresa handed the pistol to Boom and whispered, "Dad said I'm too young and doesn't allow me to play with guns. If Dad finds out, he will definitely scold me." Wei looked at Teresa, who looked embarrassed, and complained in her heart, "I saw you were shooting happily just now, and you even treated the stone under your feet as an enemy, as if you were executing the other party. Have you touched a gun before?" Wei asked Teresa curiously. "No, I haven't." Teresa shook her head. "This is my first time touching it," she said a little melancholy. "Although I like this feeling, I'm still too young now, so I can't touch it in the future. Dad said I want to be a lady and become a lady when I grow up." "Lady?" Boom glanced at Teresa with some disbelief. She didn't believe that she would become a lady when she grew up. Look at her set of actions just now. Boom seriously suspected that Teresa would become a violent woman who was more violent than Riven when she grew up. And it seems that the other party is definitely a person who will cause more trouble than Riven. "By the way, Bomb, Wei, and Brother Wooming and Brother Mark, can you continue to tell me stories about Daddy's past?" Recently, in addition to secretly practicing shooting outside the farm, Teresa is also very interested in Peter's past experiences. Bomb looked at her suspiciously. "Didn't I tell you before?" "Yes, Bomb, you told the story of Daddy's battle with the parasite, but you didn't tell how the parasite was defeated by Daddy." Teresa blinked. "Can you continue to tell me?" Bomb took a deep breath and said reluctantly, "Can I tell you the story of me and Daddy fighting against Silco and Zon?" She felt that this story was her favorite story. And in the story, she and Daddy fought side by side, which was much better than the parasite. "Okay." Teresa immediately sat down, holding her chin with her right hand, looking at Bomb, and listening to her story with relish. At the same time, Peter was testing the fighting power of the little Shiba Inu in the forest, a little far from the farm. He remembered that in the original work, the little Shiba cat was a demon from hell, summoned by Teresa and possessed by her favorite plush doll Little Shiba Cat. The Little Shiba Cat has great power and can transform from a tiny plush doll mode to demon mode, showing huge claws and a body to attack and destroy obstacles. Standing in the clearing in the forest, under the control of Peter's mind, the amber glass eyes of the little Shiba cat puppet flashed red. Peter just took a half step back, and black mist gushed out from every stitch of the doll's cotton wool, and the morning light was distorted into orange-red. Then, in Peter's surprised eyes, the little Shiba cat turned into a 3-meter-tall cat-shaped monster. In the monster form, the little Shiba cat's body swelled to about 3 meters tall, with a lion-like shape combined with the agility of cats, bronze scales on its limbs, obsidian spikes on its back, and 3 barbed whips on its tail. And the surface of the body is flowing with veins like magma. It looks powerful. Feeling the owner's intention, the little Shiba cat squatted down and leaned his head over intimately, wanting to get close to Peter. Seeing that the other party wanted to express intimacy, Peter touched it with his hand and then let it attack him. Although a little confused, the little Shiba cat still obeyed Peter's command. Standing on the ground, it was ready, and it suddenly sprayed a ball of fire at Peter. Too slow, Peter stepped back and jumped onto the boulder next to him to avoid a sudden attack of the magma fireball. Woo woo, the roar rolling in the throat of the little Shiba cat shook off the dust on the treetops. It was a little unconvinced, and soon reluctantly put away its third tail under Peter's glare. Its third tail stood up, usually indicating that it was very angry. Now that it was glared at by Peter, it immediately became honest. Just as Peter continued to test the strength of the little Shiba cat, suddenly there was a sound of animals running wildly on the ground in the jungle. When the first wild boar rushed out of the bushes, Peter had not yet reacted. Bang! A dull sound rang out. The little Shiba cat in the form of a monster suddenly stood up, and the shock wave caused by the front paws hitting the ground overturned the wild boars. Peter's dissatisfied voice was instantly drowned out by the explosion. Stop. Little Shiba cat, stop. I said I want to keep the whole body for dinner. The monster's claws hovered half an inch in front of the wild boar leader's eyeball, and the little Shiba cat's right eye suddenly turned a dark red of grievance. Seeing that the other party stopped, Peter took the opportunity to throw a silver energy to entangle the prey's hind legs, and at the same time let the little Shiba cat cooperate with him to practice its ability, wood attribute conversion. Now, emerald-colored lines instantly covered the whole body of the monster, and the burning mane of the little Shiba cat turned into a waterfall of vines. Peter immediately glided down on the drooping green vines, and his eyes swept across the little Shiba cat's newly born fangs. 30 degrees to the left, attack. Under Peter's command, countless poisonous thorn vines broke out of the ground, but they spontaneously combusted a second before entangled the wild boar. Seeing this scene, Peter immediately put out the flames on the vines. Idiot, Peter had a headache. According to the setting, this demon can use various attributes to fight. It seems that this little guy is still in his infancy and can't use his abilities well. The little Shiba cat shook his head and blew out a breath with a smell of sulfur, deliberately letting the ashes from the burned vines fall all over Peter's head. Before Peter got angry, more wild boars rushed over. When the wild boar's dark green pupils filled the entire field of vision, Peter jumped on the little Shiba cat. Keep attacking, he turned over and jumped onto the back of the monster transformed by the little Shiba cat, clamping his legs around the opponent's hair. Let me see your strength. The little Shiba cat slammed the ground with its front paws, and magma burst out from the spider web-like cracks. Peter's hair couldn't stand the heat wave, so he jumped into the air with a recoil and continued to give orders. Keep attacking on the left. The little Shiba cat monster sprayed hellfire from its mouth and spit it out at the opponent. In the tornado of ice and fire, it attacked the wild boars. There were bursts of explosions in the air, as if the air was burning violently. The moment the dying wild boar king pounced, the little Shiba Inu stretched out its claws and knocked the opponent away. The wild boar king's blood dripped on its forehead, and soon dyed it red. After attacking the beast, it looked at Peter happily, with an expression of "I'm awesome, come and praise me." Peter looked at its human expression and wondered if this demon was a child. How could such an unreliable guardian of Warcraft protect the young sister Bayonetta? Then it was time to rest after training. The little Shiba Inu has returned to its doll form and patted Peter's skin with its cotton claws. Chapter 837 Female Corpse in the Forest. Meanwhile, after listening to Bomb's story, Teresa returned to the farm room. Dad, after searching the room and not finding Peter, Teresa asked Persephone, "Auntie, where did Dad go?" Persephone was cooking, and after hearing this, she looked up and said to her, "Peter seems to have gone to the nearby woods." Then Auntie, have you seen my little Shiba Inu? Teresa found that not only was her father gone, but even her little Shiba Inu was gone. No, you can ask Peter, but Teresa, you can't go to the woods alone. Go and ask Mom to go with you, okay? Thank you, Aunt Persephone. Teresa, wearing a blue dress, came down from upstairs and walked towards the woods outside the farm. She didn't want to call Mom, because that would make her feel like she was Mom's little follower. As soon as she entered the woods, she heard the sound of crows flapping their wings. A birch tree appeared not far ahead. The orange spray-painted arrow on the bark pointed straight to the road to the northwest. This kind of sign should be made by a forest ranger, and Teresa had heard Peter mention it before. Taking a deep breath, looking at the unfamiliar forest, Teresa walked into it with some trepidation. She was too young and was a little afraid of this strange and deep environment. After walking 2 steps into the woods, the moment the forest wind swept away her body temperature, Teresa suddenly heard a scream. The high-pitched tone between human and animal, as if something was being torn in half alive. The walking stick that Teresa was holding as a pathfinder fell to the ground with a clang and rolled into a pit covered with leaves. Maybe it's just the sound of the wind, she comforted herself in a low voice. It's okay, it's okay. Teresa swallowed her saliva, went down to the pit with some fear, and picked up the walking stick. But suddenly a kind of cold intuition climbed up along the spine, like a snail dragging mucus over every bone joint. Forcing herself to calm down, Teresa continued to move forward. According to Persephone, Daddy should be nearby. The stench of this oil was so strong that it was almost concrete, and she had to pull the scarf around her to the bridge of her nose. As she walked forward, a large area of fallen ferns suddenly appeared. Milky white juice oozed from the broken leaves, giving off a strange texture in the sun. When Teresa looked up, she felt something was wrong, and a drop of warm liquid hit her forehead. Her eyes trembled as she looked up at the spruce tree above, and a swaying ankle was reflected between the intertwined branches. Toes painted with peeling pink nail polish appeared in front of her. Frightened by this scene, she swallowed hard and stepped back. Daddy, she called Peter's name softly while stepping back. But soon she stopped again. Maybe the people up there need her help. Thinking of this, Teresa hesitated for a moment and walked forward to the big tree. After taking a deep breath and cheering herself up, Teresa wiped her glasses and grabbed the lowest branch. Her small leather boots scraped long scratches on the bark. As she continued to climb, she soon smelled a strange smell, which became thicker and thicker as she climbed up. After climbing a few meters, Teresa suddenly found a figure above her head. She was shocked to see a corpse in front of her. The body of the blonde woman was stuck between the branches, like a rag doll thrown away by a giant. Her beige knitted cardigan rolled up to her chest, revealing the neatly arranged wounds on her abdomen. Several branches were inserted into her body, and blood dripped down along the leaves. Teresa was frightened by this scene and almost fell down. She quickly got down from the tree, suppressing her fear. She almost cried, and after getting down from the tree, she ran towards the farm as fast as she could. But after running 2 steps and looking around, Teresa's breathing stagnated. She saw that the fallen ferns all stood up, and the leaves pointed to the beech trees behind her. It seemed that all the plants were moving. No. Daddy, Teresa called out to Peter in fear and immediately started running. Broken branches whipped her cheeks, thorny vines hooked her trouser legs, and she heard her thundering heartbeat overlapped with another footsteps. Every time she looked back, she could only see the swaying shadows of the trees, but every time she stopped, the footsteps stopped precisely when she was breathing. After running for an unknown period of time, Teresa found something that made her even more scared, that is, she was lost. After a circle, she found herself under the spruce tree with a body again. Teresa sat down in fear, collapsed and hugged her legs, and cried woohoo. The body was still shaking gently above her head, and the sound of leaves and corpses colliding mixed with the forest wind poured into her eardrums. Just as Teresa was crying desperately, she heard a voice from behind her. Baby, what's wrong with you? Hearing the voice from behind, Teresa immediately raised her head. She saw a female forest ranger appear in front of her. The female ranger suddenly appeared. She was wearing a faded olive green uniform, a wide-brimmed hat, and blonde hair. She smiled at Teresa. Are you okay, baby? Yes, there's a body here. Right there. Teresa raised her hand and pointed at the leaves above her head. To her surprise, the body hanging on the tree just now was gone. How is it possible? Teresa looked incredulous. I just saw a girl's body in it. Maybe you saw it wrong. You know, the light in the woods is a little dim. We always see things wrong, such as mistaking lizards in the bushes for snakes or other creatures." The female ranger smiled and walked over, stroking her hair. "What's your name, baby?" "My name is Teresa. My dad is Peter Patrick. You can also call me Bayonetta. This is the new name my dad gave me," Teresa whispered to her. "Teresa? Bayonetta," the female ranger repeated, smiling. "Okay, I'll call you Bayonetta." Then she introduced herself to Teresa. "I'm Gloria, the ranger of this forest. It's not safe here. There are wild boars. It's very dangerous for a child like you to be here. Let me take you home." Gloria held out her hand to Teresa, wanting to take her home. "Thank you, Auntie Gloria," the well-behaved Teresa thanked her. "You're welcome. You're so cute. Auntie doesn't want anything to happen to you." Then she took Teresa's hand and walked out of the forest. Teresa was very impressed with the aunt who helped her, and the two talked on the way. "You said your father is Peter Patrick." "Yes. Do you know Dad?" Teresa asked curiously. "My sister and brother said that Dad is very famous in the town." Gloria nodded. "Your father is indeed very famous around here. I have also heard about his deeds. I never thought that you were his daughter." She squatted down and adjusted Teresa's glasses. She was surprised that Teresa's glasses had no frame support and had not fallen off. Although she wanted to ask Teresa about her glasses, she didn't ask in the end, but told Teresa about her profession. Gloria said that she was not only a forest ranger, but also a nun in a nearby church. "Nun?" Teresa's eyes lit up instantly when she heard the other party say that. "Can you tell me what a nun is, Aunt Gloria?" Teresa asked curiously. "Of course, that's a very long history," Gloria explained to her. "A long time ago, Catholic priests, corrupted by the corrupt atmosphere of Rome, became arrogant, extravagant, corrupt, and deviated from religious beliefs. Under such circumstances, a considerable number of devout monks, in order to escape the tyranny and cruel taxes of the Roman Empire, avoid the oppression of Roman nobles, and stay away from the decadent atmosphere permeating the church, they established monasteries, and a large number of women voluntarily became nuns." She stopped and said to Teresa, "As for now, there are also many women who choose to become nuns, but there is an important requirement for being a nun, that is, to dedicate themselves to the church, maintain chastity for life, and cannot marry." Teresa tilted her head and thought for a while. She has no interest in getting married now, but subconsciously feels that nuns and ladies are the same profession. "Daddy wants me to be a lady. Should I become a nun?" At this time, Sister Bea has planted the seeds of becoming a nun in her heart. Aunt Gloria, can I become a nun?" "Of course, Bayonetta, but this requires your father's permission. Also, although you can't become a formal nun now, you can come to the church to visit and be a temporary nun on weekdays." Gloria touched her hair and said, "Thank you, Aunt Gloria, I will definitely go," Teresa said happily. She completely forgot about a corpse she saw before. After Gloria sent Teresa to the forest, she left the forest and returned home. Peter had returned to the farm early at this time. Because he didn't find Teresa's trace and was worried that she was in trouble, Peter took the Shiba Inu doll and rushed to the woods. As soon as he walked to the edge of the woods, he found Teresa. "Daddy." Seeing Peter appear, Teresa immediately ran over and hugged Peter. "Daddy. I almost lost sight of you just now." "Daddy is right here, you won't lose sight of him." Peter picked up the cute little girl wearing glasses. "But next time, you are not allowed to go to the woods alone, understand?" "Okay, Daddy." "Daddy, can I be a nun?" Chapter 838. Should I choose to be a witch or a farmer? What? Peter was stunned when he heard what Teresa said. This naughty child wants to be a nun at such a young age? Bayonetta and nuns. He immediately remembered such a scene. Bayonetta, who has grown into a witch, is wearing pure white nun clothes. After silently chanting a spell to summon an angel, Bayonetta rushed to the sky to greet the angel. But her welcome was not so friendly. The next second was a shot of Bayonetta quickly beating up the angel. After beating up the angel, Bayonetta in witch form also posed a gorgeous pose. "If you really become a nun, the angel will be in trouble. You have destroyed it all. For the safety of the angel, I suggest that you better not become a nun." Although he complained like this in his heart, the expression on Peter's face was still a warm smile. "If you like, you can try it. What you want to be is not up to your father, but there is one thing, Teresa." Peter's expression became serious. "You are still young, you are not allowed to play with guns in the future, understand?" Mark told him about Teresa's shooting performance just now. Although he was a little surprised at first, it was within his expectations. The Bayonetta in Peter's memory was originally a queen who was better at using guns than Boom. In the original world line, Bayonetta had 4 pistols named after 4 spices, 2 of which were handheld and 2 were tightly buckled on the boots. The picture of Bayonetta during the battle was also very funny. She kept shouting to throw the gun, and the scene quickly switched between Bayonetta shooting and her companion throwing the gun. Finally, the companion threw out all the guns and threw out a lollipop. Bayonetta caught the lollipop and held it in her mouth. The picture instantly turned pink. The next second, she was holding 2 guns and quickly hitting the angel. The picture looked very weird. He still remembered the specific moves of Bayonetta's gunfighting. Each move is like a street dance move, such as spinning on the ground, firing 4 pistols at the same time, and finally Bayonetta lying on the ground with the sound effect of taking a photo. Or the aerial execution shooting, Bayonetta jumping into the air and spreading her colorful wings, looking like a beautiful butterfly. If she really becomes like Bayonetta in her previous life, Peter estimated that she would do some second-year moves again. He thinks that he has to limit Teresa's playfulness. Now it is enough for the little Shiba Inu to protect her safety. Peter thinks it is better to give Teresa a pure and perfect childhood full of beautiful memories, and talk about fighting and killing later. I understand, Daddy. Teresa nodded and promised Peter that she would not play with guns easily in the future. Looking at his daughter's cute and well-behaved appearance, Peter nodded with satisfaction and handed the little Shiba Inu doll to her. Dad just borrowed your little Shiba Inu, and now I'm returning it to you. After taking the little Shiba Inu from Peter, Teresa's mood suddenly became much better. She hugged the little Shiba Inu tightly and thanked Peter. Thank you, Dad. It should be Dad, thank you. Peter threw a hidden weapon to her. Catch it. Swoosh, a pink hidden weapon was caught by the quick-eyed and quick-handed Teresa. Looking at the lollipop Peter gave her, Teresa was afraid that Peter would go back on his word, so she stuffed it into her mouth. Her mouth was bulging, and her eyes narrowed with joy. Since Peter gave her a lollipop the day before yesterday, she has completely fallen in love with the taste of this candy. In her opinion now, lollipops are the most delicious thing in the world. The lollipop given to her by her dad is the most delicious and best thing in the world. By the way, looking at Teresa licking the lollipop happily, Peter asked her, "Why do you want to be a nun, Teresa? Is it because of the awakening of blood?" "Because I met a nun named Gloria. She said I could visit the church, and she was very kind to send me outside." Teresa told Peter about what she saw in the woods. Of course, she also told Peter about the scene where she saw the body, and then the body suddenly disappeared. After listening to Teresa's story, Peter frowned. He felt that the matter was not as simple as Teresa's dazzle. After hesitating for a while, Peter took out his mobile phone and contacted Officer Chandler. Maybe there was really a murder in the woods. An hour later, the body of the woman, suspended by vines 20 feet high, was swaying gently with a mountain breeze. The beige sweater was torn to the chest, revealing a perfectly arranged circular wound on the abdomen. After searching for a while, the police finally found the body on a tree far away from the road. There are no lacerations on the edge of the wound, as if it was cut by a laser, and the abdomen was inserted with wood. After listening to the report of his men, Officer Chandler said to Peter, "This was not done by an animal. It looks like internal and external forces acted on her body at the same time. The wood was not only inserted into her body from the outside, but also from inside her." As he said, he looked at Teresa, who was following Peter. Teresa had her black hair in a ponytail, hanging at her heels. She was eating a lollipop and holding Peter's trouser leg tightly, looking a little nervous and curious. After not seeing each other for a while, Peter had another daughter. He wondered if Peter was the kind of sports star who liked to leave offspring outside and had a lot of illegitimate children. Although it was a bit ridiculous to think so, it was not surprising to think so when he thought about how Peter's appearance had not changed for so long, and he seemed to have an ageless face like a vampire. What surprised Chandler was that the little girl in front of him didn't seem to be very afraid of the corpse. Just as Chandler was thinking about it, Peter frowned slightly and said to him, "Teresa said before that she heard a man and a woman making noises. Now that the woman has been found, the man should still be nearby." As he said that, Peter activated his supervision and looked through the heavy cover into the depths of the dense bushes. Soon he found something strange. Asking Officer Chandler to help him look after his daughter, Peter rushed in one direction. A few minutes later, as Peter's boots crushed pine needles, the smell of humus suddenly became pungent. He squatted down and rubbed his fingertips over the slime on the fir trunk, something between sap and stomach acid, slowly corroding the bark. Then Peter closed his eyes and used his super hearing to detect the subtle sounds nearby. The rustle of earthworms drilling through rotten leaves, the roar of underground rivers washing shale, and 16 feet deep, a heart was struggling to beat. The moment the perspective ability was activated, the world faded from color. Peter's supervision penetrated a granite layer like flipping through a transparent anatomical atlas. The outline of a man emerged between the cracks in the rock, curled up in a fetal position, tightly wrapped by root-like foreign objects. Deeper, countless fluorescent green vines spread like an underground neural network. Whoosh, moving here at super speed, just as Peter's thermal vision was about to melt through the rock layer, the vine broke through the ground. The vines, as thick as a bowl, instantly wrapped around Peter's ankles. The vines were as powerful as the brake calipers of a train. They grabbed Peter and swung him upside down toward the fir tree. The super speed allowed Peter to see clearly in an instant the dense barbs on the bark. Bang! The next second, the wood fibers burst under the impact of his spine, and the needles fell. Peter calmly grabbed the vines and tore them apart. What spurted out from the broken parts was not juice, but acid mist mixed with fluorescent spores. Peter's pupils contracted reflexively, and his vision suddenly blurred into a green vortex. The moment the toxin affected Peter, more vines pierced from the ground. Peter reacted quickly and turned to avoid the vines' attack. Bang! The vines hit the ground with a dull explosion. Facing the vines' attack, Peter's thermal vision swept around him, and the charred vines instantly rose into smoke. He took the opportunity to press his palms to the ground, and the sonar imaging was reconstructed in his mind. The man's blood pressure was plummeting, and the roots of the vines wrapped around his body more and more tightly. Peter, who found the man underground was still alive, was about to get him out. The next moment, he pulled his hand away suddenly and found that the ground was covered with mycelium nets that were trying to drill into his pores. Shaking his head, Peter took a deep breath in front of the plant vines that seemed to be controlled by someone. Huh? As his super breath rolled up a hurricane, the pine trees within a radius of 100 meters collectively leaned back, and the mycelium nets were uprooted. Then Peter's heat vision pierced into the rock layer like a red spear. In the white smoke of vaporized granite, Peter jumped into the self-dug shaft. On the way down, the vines kept entangled with him, some wrapped around his neck, and some were dazzling. Boom! He twisted his body in midair and crushed the vines that rushed up with his bare hands. A few seconds later, the underground cave suddenly opened up. A man with a backpack was hung upside down between stalactites, and the vines tightly surrounded him. The other person's pupils had dilated, but he was still breathing. Peter's heat vision instantly cut off the vines, then grabbed the unconscious man and flew to the ground. At the same time, Teresa, who had followed quietly, was shocked by Peter's series of actions just now. Daddy is so powerful. She didn't expect that her daddy was even more powerful than the witch. The power and various incredible abilities that Peter showed just now made Teresa stunned at this moment. She knew that her daddy was powerful, but she didn't expect that he was so powerful. This incredible performance instantly excited her mood. She wanted to be a witch as powerful as her mommy, but it seemed that her daddy was more powerful than her mommy. She was in a dilemma now. Should she choose to be a witch like her mother, or a farmer like her daddy? Teresa felt that it was difficult for her to choose. You say, little Shiba Inu, should I be a witch or a farmer? Teresa asked the little Shiba Inu in her arms. The little Shiba Inu doll was motionless, and it seemed that it didn't know how to answer this question. Chapter 839 About who is the bad guy. Peter brought the unconscious man to Chandler's place quickly. Seeing Peter bringing the man, Chandler immediately notified the ambulance to take the man away. What happened? After confirming that there was no one around, Chandler whispered to Peter, "Where did you find him, Peter?" "He was trapped underground, wrapped in vines." Peter glanced at Teresa, who had secretly followed him all the way, pretending not to know that she was peeping at him. This little girl was extremely curious. Not only was she not afraid of the corpse, she also followed him to secretly watch her father's secret operation. Frowning, Peter turned his thoughts to the present and said to Chandler, "The plants here seem to have life and will attack people on their own. Just like the Black Forest in the Brothers Grimm." "What?" Peter looked at Chandler in confusion, not quite understanding what the Black Forest was that the other party was talking about. "What's wrong with the Black Forest?" "Don't worry about it, it's just a movie production." After coughing, he continued to say to Peter, "In other words, it was the plants in this woods that killed the girl who was hanging just now, almost." But plants won't have life for no reason and then attack people. Peter glanced at the body of the woman covered with a white cloth and carried away. And said to Chandler, "The biggest possibility is that someone is controlling these plants to kill people." "I see." Officer Chandler nodded. "Similar things have happened in the town more than once. Since the meteor shower, many meteorite monsters have appeared in the town. It seems that this homicide should be caused by a guy similar to the meteorite monster." Peter also suspected that it was the work of the meteorite monster. He thought for a moment and said to Chandler, "Before, Teresa met a ranger named Gloria here. You can investigate whether she is a meteorite monster." Peter asked Chandler to help investigate the ranger first. He always felt that the other party's origin was a bit strange. "Gloria?" Chandler nodded after repeating the name. "Anyway, thank you for your help, Peter." Chandler thanked Peter. "If it weren't for you, I'm afraid this survivor would not be found." "You're welcome, we are old friends." Peter patted Chandler's shoulder and walked home with Teresa. Now he had nothing to do here. As for whether Gloria was a meteorite monster, he believed that Chandler should be able to find out quickly. Holding Peter's hand, Teresa walked on the path and whispered to Peter, "Dad, do you think Aunt Gloria is a bad person?" "Why do you ask that, Teresa?" Peter stopped and squatted down to ask her. "Because I heard you talking to the policeman," Teresa said to him with some concern. "I don't think Aunt Gloria is a bad person. Sometimes, we see a person clearly not by whether she is good to you or not." Peter tidied her clothes and took out a lollipop that had completely melted in her mouth and only a stick was left. "In our daily life, we will meet all kinds of people. Among them, some people are pure and sincere, and we share the same ideals with us. We will only benefit a lot from deep friendship. However, there are also some people who have ulterior motives and are insidious and cunning. Associating with them will only put us in danger," Peter said slowly to his daughter. "Sometimes you can't see it. This requires you to use your eyes to see through the truth behind his surface." "Then Dad, is Gloria a bad person?" "No, Dad doesn't know. Maybe she is, maybe not. If you want to get to know her, you need to use your own eyes to see clearly." Peter pointed to her eyes. "The adult world is really complicated, Dad. I still want to be a child," Teresa said with some sorrow. Peter didn't expect his daughter to be sentimental about life. With a slight smile, he picked up his daughter. "Whether adults or children, it's always so complicated." The next day, Peter was in the living room, watching TV with Beo, Wei and Teresa. The phone in the living room rang. Peter got up and answered the phone, and found that it was Officer Chandler who called. The other party told her that he had investigated Gloria, who Peter mentioned. Gloria used to work in the metropolis and was a forest ranger who was recently transferred. And he used special equipment to check Gloria's body, and did not find any meteorite components in it, so she could be preliminarily ruled out as a suspect. Catcha. After hanging up the phone, Peter sat back on the sofa. Teresa asked her curiously, "Dad, what's wrong?" It was Officer Chandler's call, and he said Gloria is fine. That means Aunt Gloria is not a bad person anymore. Teresa excitedly held Peter's arm. "Well, Daddy will take you to visit this aunt when he is free." "Okay, thank you, Daddy." Teresa thanked Peter sweetly. "You are the best daddy in the world." The cute little girl next to her was speechless after hearing what Teresa said. "Although this guy looks silly, he is more talkative than Raven and Loki. It seems that this little witch whose only magic is that she can wear frameless glasses without them falling off will be her rival in the future. Gloria has temporarily cleared her suspicion, but Chloe and Clark on the other side have investigated the matter. You don't think that you can make this a headline with just these few photos, do you?" Clark and Chloe are sitting in the Talon Cafe, discussing the recent case of the female corpse in the forest. Chloe is now interning at the Daily Planet, and in order to pass the internship period, she is now seizing every opportunity to make the headlines. On the table now are the photos of the female corpse in the forest that Chloe got. "No, of course I won't. Besides, I don't think it's the right thing to take and publish the victim's diagnosis photos. I just want to say that I'm very interested in this case," she introduced to Clark. The man and woman were a couple at the time. They were attacked while making out in the woods. Then the woman died and the man was rescued. The one who rescued him was Mr. Peter. Chloe's eyes flashed with curiosity. "I think we can find out the murderer behind the scenes. This way I can get a full-time job. You know, it's always been my dream to become a reporter for the Daily Planet like Louise." Listening to Chloe's words, Clark said helplessly, "I want to help you, but we don't have any clues." "There is one." Chloe took out the map of the town and put it on the table. There are two suspicious areas closest to this woods. One is a swamp. The owner of the land is your godfather, Mr. Peter, and the other suspicious area is a botanical garden. She asked Clark, "Do you know who the owner of the botanical garden is?" "Who?" "Lex Luthor," Chloe said to him. "The Luthor family has been conducting secret experiments in the town. Perhaps this is caused by their experiments." Chapter 840 The Forbidden Sun, The Witch's Left Eye. Listening to Chloe's words, Clark looked at the map. "Is this Lone Pine Ridge?" "Yes, a boy and a girl were playing games in Lone Pine Ridge, and the girl broke her wings and the boy flew away." Clark listened to Chloe's teasing, hesitated for a moment, and asked her, "Why don't you think the boy killed her?" Chloe shook her head and said, "I don't think it's something that ordinary people can do." "Think about it, Clark, hanging someone on a tree within 5 minutes, this is not something that ordinary people can do." Clark nodded, showing a thoughtful expression. "Unless that guy has been exposed to Krypton crystal." He stood up and said to Chloe, "I think we should go to the hospital to see that guy." "Good idea." Chloe stood up, waved to the waiter, and after paying the bill, she followed Clark to leave Talon Cafe. The two then took a car to the medical center. Sitting in the co-pilot, Chloe supported her arms and looked at the scenery flashing outside. After looking at the scenery for a while, she suddenly turned around and asked Clark, "Your godfather's family disappeared before. Where did they go? Did the whole family go on a trip?" Chloe was quite interested in the disappearance of Peter's family a few days ago. She was always interested in Peter's family, who were full of mystery. "Why didn't they take you, Clark?" Chloe asked a question that Clark was very concerned about. No, the godfather and his family didn't go on a trip, but went out to participate in a competition." Although Clark was a little concerned that Peter didn't take him, he quickly adjusted his mood and didn't let Chloe see it. "Competition? Is it about who is Peter's favorite child title selection?" Chloe knew that Azu and the others had been competing with each other openly and secretly, so she asked jokingly. Almost. Clark didn't know what happened in the specific cave battle. He only knew that it seemed that Raven became the final winner. "If I get married in the future and have so many daughters and sons, I will definitely collapse," Chloe said with some sympathy. "I understand your godfather's troubles, Clark. By the way," Chloe raised her voice in surprise, "I heard that there is a new little girl on the farm recently." "Yes, her name is Teresa Patrick," Clark said to Chloe while driving the car. "She is very cute and a little shy. She likes to wear glasses like me." "Well, I'm used to Peter picking up alien babies every once in a while," Chloe complained to him. "I used to suspect that Loki and Star-Lord were the sons of Teacher Martha." The two chatted and soon entered the town's medical center. In the ward, Chloe gently pushed open the door and let Clark in, and then the two looked at the unconscious guy on the bed. "We have to hurry, Clark. His mother is in the restaurant now, and she will probably be back soon." As she said that, she walked quickly to the bed and picked up the patient's medical records. "This guy is seriously injured." Chloe looked at the diagnosis report and said to Clark, "Although he's much better than his girlfriend who was hanging on the tree." Clark came over, looked at the unconscious man, frowned and asked Chloe, "Can he wake up?" "I don't know. It said he lost too much blood and his internal organs were damaged." Chloe put down the medical record. "I think we should focus the investigation on Lex. A distance east from Lone Pine Ridge is Lex's home. Their laboratory botanical garden is nearby. Investigating Lex may reveal something." Clark listened to Chloe's words, shook his head and said, "It's probably too early to determine that Lex is the murderer. He has a good relationship with Lex and doesn't think Lex is that kind of person. You forgot that Lex had contact with Kara's spaceship before. He is not as harmless as he appears to be." "Clark, this guy likes to plot like his father." Seeing Chloe's insistence, Clark couldn't say anything more. He took out the key and said, "I think we should visit him first to see if he is a suspect." Half an hour later, Clark parked the car outside the botanical garden and asked Chloe to wait for him. He went into the manor alone to see the situation. After entering the botanical garden, Clark was dazzled by the colorful flowers that bloomed. The plants exuding the fragrance of flowers quickly attracted his attention. Squinting his eyes, Clark walked to a potted plant with red flowers in full bloom. He stretched out his hand and touched the flowers of the red plant. The moment he touched it, a voice sounded behind him. "Good vision, Clark." Clark turned around suddenly after hearing the voice and saw Lex in a black suit walking towards him. Lex, walking leisurely with his hands in his pockets, introduced Clark. "This is femme fatale, with a beautiful appearance hiding a ferocious nature." Clark took his hand back in surprise. In other words, does this flower have a conspiracy? Lex smiled slightly. I think this is also the result of survival of the fittest, isn't it? Clark nodded, looked around at the flowers, and asked him, there is a rare vine in Lone Pine Ridge, and that vine can kill people. Before he finished speaking, Lex interrupted him. So, Clark, you came to me to stop me from ruling the world with plants, Lex said as he walked behind him. Wow, my conspiracy is really creative. He turned around and asked Clark, in your eyes, Clark, am I the kind of person who likes to plot? No, Lex, Clark wanted to say that he didn't mean that. But he was a little speechless. Maybe in his subconscious, he also felt that this was Lex's conspiracy. After all, the other party had investigated the Godfather and his parents. I just saw some reports on TV. Clark quickly found an excuse for himself. Some reports about you, Clark. The media is not a good thing, Lex said to him slowly, you know? But when I was 13 years old, I was still in boarding school. A reporter came to me and asked me what I thought about my mother's death, in front of my classmates. A microphone was facing me. I almost couldn't stand steadily. It was not until that moment that I knew that my mother was gone. We can't let the media ruin our lives. Listening to Lex's words, Clark felt a little strange. He didn't expect Lex to have such a life. Thank you for telling me this, Lex. Clark took a deep breath and said to him, I have to go. Don't you want to visit my plants? Lex told him not to worry and visit his botanical garden first. No, I have something else to do. Clark declined his invitation. Seeing that Clark was leaving, Lex had to send him out. On the way, Lex asked him about Teresa. I heard that Mr. Patrick has a new daughter named Teresa. Clark, do you know her? Lex pretended to ask Clark casually. Yes, I know her, but I haven't been to the Godfather's farm recently, so I don't know much about her. She is the Godfather's daughter and was boarding at someone else's house before. Clark lied to Lex. The two of them left the botanical garden while talking. After Clark got in the car, Lex looked at the back of Clark's car leaving and narrowed his eyes. Conspiracy? I don't have a conspiracy, but Clark, you have always had a conspiracy. The next day, Peter drove Teresa to the church in the town. In the distant past, people called historical observers lived in Vigrid, Europe. At the same time, there were witches who colluded with demons, and sages who allied with angels who opposed each other and checked each other. Peter told Teresa, who was sitting in the passenger seat holding a Shiba Inu doll, the story of Teresa's world. However, the appearance of the forbidden child broke this balance. She is the product of the private relationship between the witch and the sage. The ancient legend has come true. The body of the forbidden child contains the power of the Creator's left eye. When the left eye and the right eye converge, the Creator will come and create a new world, Peter said to her while driving. So in order to compete for the power of the forbidden child's left eye, the angels and witches started a protracted conflict. Listening to Peter's story, Teresa hugged the little Shiba Inu in her arms and asked Peter uneasily, Dad, who is the bad guy and who is the good guy between the angel and the witch? That's not necessarily true, Peter said to Teresa. Aren't you going to be a witch? In Dad's eyes, witches are good people. Teresa heard Peter say this and a happy expression appeared on her face. But she quickly whispered, I want to be a witch, but I want to be Dad's farmer more. What? Peter kept looking at the road ahead and didn't hear Teresa's mumbling. Nothing, Dad. Teresa quickly sat up straight and looked forward. After the car drove for a while, it arrived near the church. After Peter got off the car, he looked at the shabby church in front of him, then took Teresa's hand and walked inside. Since they had called in advance, the person in charge of the church, an old nun, soon welcomed Peter in. Ranger Gloria heard the voice and came out in a white nun's dress. Hello, Mr. Patrick. Ranger Gloria smiled and stretched out her hand to Peter. I'm Gloria Wilson. Chapter 841 Bayonetta, Becoming a Witch? And shocking Dad for a whole year. Listening to Chloe's words, Clark looked at the map. Is this Lone Pine Ridge? Yes, a boy and a girl were playing games in Lone Pine Ridge, and the girl broke her wings and the boy flew away. Clark listened to Chloe's teasing, hesitated for a moment, and asked her, why don't you think the boy killed her? Chloe shook her head and said, I don't think it's something that ordinary people can do. Think about it, Clark, hanging someone on a tree within 5 minutes. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Clark nodded, showing a thoughtful expression. Unless that guy has been exposed to Krypton crystal. He stood up and said to Chloe, I think we should go to the hospital to see that guy. Good idea. Chloe stood up, waved to the waiter, and after paying the bill, she followed Clark to leave Talon Cafe. The two then took a car to the medical center. Sitting in the co-pilot, Chloe supported her arms and looked at the scenery flashing outside. After looking at the scenery for a while, she suddenly turned around and asked Clark, "Your godfather's family disappeared before. Where did they go? Did the whole family go on a trip?" Chloe was quite interested in the disappearance of Peter's family a few days ago. She was always interested in Peter's family, who were full of mystery. "Why didn't they take you, Clark?" Chloe asked a question that Clark was very concerned about. No, the godfather and his family didn't go on a trip, but went out to participate in a competition." Although Clark was a little concerned that Peter didn't take him, he quickly adjusted his mood and didn't let Chloe see it. Competition? Is it about who is Peter's favorite child title selection? Chloe knew that Azu and the others had been competing with each other openly and secretly, so she asked jokingly. Almost. Clark didn't know what happened in the specific cave battle. He only knew that it seemed that Raven became the final winner. "If I get married in the future and have so many daughters and sons, I will definitely collapse," Chloe said with some sympathy. "I understand your godfather's troubles, Clark." By the way, Chloe raised her voice in surprise. "I heard that there is a new little girl on the farm recently." "Yes, her name is Teresa Patrick," Clark said to Chloe while driving the car. "She is very cute and a little shy. She likes to wear glasses like me." "Well, I'm used to Peter picking up alien babies every once in a while," Chloe complained to him. "I used to suspect that Loki and Star-Lord were the sons of Teacher Martha." The two chatted and soon entered the town's medical center. In the ward, Chloe gently pushed open the door and let Clark in, and then the two looked at the unconscious guy on the bed. "We have to hurry, Clark. His mother is in the restaurant now, and she will probably be back soon." As she said that, she walked quickly to the bed and picked up the patient's medical records. "This guy is seriously injured." Chloe looked at the diagnosis report and said to Clark, "Although he's much better than his girlfriend who was hanging on the tree." Clark came over, looked at the unconscious man, frowned and asked Chloe, "Can you wake up?" "I don't know. It said he lost too much blood and his internal organs were damaged." Chloe put down the medical record. "I think we should focus the investigation on Lex. A distance east from Lone Pine Ridge is Lex's home. Their laboratory botanical garden is nearby. Investigating Lex may reveal something." Clark listened to Chloe's words, shook his head and said, "It's probably too early to determine that Lex is the murderer. He has a good relationship with Lex and doesn't think Lex is that kind of person. You forgot that Lex had contact with Kara's spaceship before. He is not as harmless as he appears to be. Clark, this guy likes to plot like his father." Seeing Chloe's insistence, Clark couldn't say anything more. He took out the key and said, "I think we should visit him first to see if he is a suspect." Half an hour later, Clark parked the car outside the botanical garden and asked Chloe to wait for him. He went into the manor alone to see the situation. After entering the botanical garden, Clark was dazzled by the colorful flowers that bloomed. The plants exuding the fragrance of flowers quickly attracted his attention. Squinting his eyes, Clark walked to a potted plant with red flowers in full bloom. He stretched out his hand and touched the flowers of the red plant. The moment he touched it, a voice sounded behind him. "Good vision, Clark." Clark turned around suddenly after hearing the voice and saw Lex in a black suit walking towards him. Lex, walking leisurely with his hands in his pockets, introduced Clark. "This is femme fatale, with a beautiful appearance hiding a ferocious nature." Clark took his hand back in surprise. "In other words, does this flower have a conspiracy?" Lex smiled slightly. "I think this is also the result of survival of the fittest, isn't it?" Clark nodded, looked around at the flowers, and asked him, "There is a rare vine in Lone Pine Ridge, and that vine can kill people." Before he finished speaking, Lex interrupted him. "So, Clark, you came to me to stop me from ruling the world with plants," Lex said as he walked behind him. "Wow, my conspiracy is really creative." He turned around and asked Clark, "In your eyes, Clark, am I the kind of person who likes to plot?" "No, Lex, Clark wanted to say that he didn't mean that, but he was a little speechless. Maybe in his subconscious, he also felt that this was Lex's conspiracy. After all, the other party had investigated the godfather and his parents. "I just saw some reports on TV." Clark quickly found an excuse for himself. "Some reports about you, Clark. The media is not a good thing," Lex said to him slowly. "You know? But when I was 13 years old, I was still in boarding school. A reporter came to me and asked me what I thought about my mother's death. In front of my classmates, a microphone was facing me. I almost couldn't stand steadily. It was not until that moment that I knew that my mother was gone. We can't let the media ruin our lives. Listening to Lex's words, Clark felt a little strange. He didn't expect Lex to have such a life. Thank you for telling me this, Lex. Clark took a deep breath and said to him, I have to go. Don't you want to visit my plants? Lex told him not to worry and visit his botanical garden first. No, I have something else to do. Clark declined his invitation. Seeing that Clark was leaving, Lex had to send him out. On the way, Lex asked him about Teresa. I heard that Mr. Patrick has a new daughter named Teresa. Clark, do you know her? Lex pretended to ask Clark casually. Yes, I know her, but I haven't been to the Godfather's farm recently, so I don't know much about her. She is the Godfather's daughter and was boarding at someone else's house before. Clark lied to Lex. The two of them left the botanical garden while talking. After Clark got in the car, Lex looked at the back of Clark's car leaving and narrowed his eyes. Conspiracy? I don't have a conspiracy, but Clark, you have always had a conspiracy. The next day, Peter drove Teresa to the church in the town. In the distant past, people called historical observers lived in Vigrid, Europe. At the same time, there were witches who colluded with demons, and sages who allied with angels who opposed each other and checked each other. Peter told Teresa, who was sitting in the passenger seat holding a Shiba Inu doll, the story of Teresa's world. However, the appearance of the forbidden child broke this balance. She is the product of the private relationship between the witch and the sage. The ancient legend has come true. The body of the forbidden child contains the power of the Creator's left eye. When the left eye and the right eye converge, the Creator will come and create a new world, Peter said to her while driving. So in order to compete for the power of the forbidden child's left eye, the angels and witches started a protracted conflict. Listening to Peter's story, Teresa hugged the little Shiba Inu in her arms and asked Peter uneasily, Dad, who is the bad guy and who is the good guy between the angel and the witch? That's not necessarily true, Peter said to Teresa. Aren't you going to be a witch? In Dad's eyes, witches are good people. Teresa heard Peter say this and a happy expression appeared on her face. But she quickly whispered, I want to be a witch, but I want to be Dad's farmer more. What? Peter kept looking at the road ahead and didn't hear Teresa's mumbling. Nothing, Dad. Teresa quickly sat up straight and looked forward. After the car drove for a while, it arrived near the church. After Peter got off the car, he looked at the shabby church in front of him, then took Teresa's hand and walked inside. Since they had called in advance, the person in charge of the church, an old nun, soon welcomed Peter in. Ranger Gloria heard the voice and came out in a white nun's dress. Hello, Mr. Patrick. Ranger Gloria smiled and stretched out her hand to Peter. I'm Gloria Wilson. Chapter 842, Exchanging Tokens, Encounter Between Two Witches. She closed her eyes, feeling a little sleepy. The moon outside the window was as bright as a silver disk, emitting a brighter glow. With her eyes closed, Teresa felt a trance. When she woke up, she found herself in a strange place. The silver disk was still hanging in the sky, but she was not in her room. Holding the little Shiba Inu, she found herself standing on the roof of a church barefoot. There were bursts of fog around her. Surrounded by the cold, she couldn't help shivering. Daddy, are you there? Being in a strange place, Teresa called out Peter's name in fear. But she called out several times, but there was no response from Peter. Daddy. Because she couldn't find Peter, Teresa's eyes were filled with tears. Just as she was sobbing barefoot, she suddenly heard a whistling sound from the sky. Surprised, she looked up and saw an unknown creature appear in the sky above her head. The unknown creature had white wings, a huge body, covered with golden armor, 6 wings on its back, a mask covering its face, and a giant sword in its hand. Soon, more than one creature with a strong sense of oppression appeared in the sky. The other angels that appeared, although not as huge as the angels in golden armor, also looked scary. Seeing the groups of angels appearing, Teresa was stunned. White wings, and such a holy feeling, is this an angel? Just as Teresa fell into a dazed expression, a dark figure jumped down from the sky with a whoosh. Bayonetta, whose black battlesuit emitted a cold light in the night sky, bang landed on the top of the church. Looking at Teresa in the form of a little lolly, she sighed helplessly. It's you again, crybaby. Teresa heard the other party say this and quickly wiped away her tears. She is not a crybaby. Just as Teresa was about to tell Mommy that she was not a crybaby, the angel in the sky rushed towards the adult version of Bayonetta. Good, I'm just feeling a little irritated. Bayonetta drew out her katana with her backhand. Buzz, the buzzing sound of the katana being unsheathed dispersed the clouds. The blade reflected her slow motion of licking the corner of her lips. Bang, the first cut through the angel's holy light barrier. As Bayonetta turned around, the high-slit skirt flew up, revealing the marks wrapped around the outside of her thighs. The angel's wings swept across her backward waist, but were bounced off by the back of the blade just before touching her skin. Bang! Sparks from the collision of metals burst out in the air. It's not good to be too hard. Then Bayonetta stood on one foot on the top of the weather vane, and the katana spun into a silver vortex at her fingertips. Bang! The swooping stab tore through the air, and the tip of the blade burst into sparks when it touched the angel's breastplate. Using the samurai sword, Bayonetta quickly killed the minions. But soon, the largest armored angel rushed towards her. Using the samurai sword to block the opponent's attack, Bayonetta took a step back, raised her eyebrows, and glimpsed the slight curl of the blade. The moment the angel's holy sword fell, she suddenly let go of the sword. With her toes, she hooked the falling handle and kicked it towards the enemy's face, using the reaction force to flip back. The black battlesuit stretched out a thrilling waist and hip curve under the moonlight, and her stiletto heels just stepped in the pendulum gear when she landed. Let's change the dance music. Seeing that the samurai sword could not cut the armored angel, she blew into her palm, and the tentacles woven with magic hair grabbed the weapon box from the void. The moment the box exploded, Bayonetta's black hair entangled the handle of the giant chainsaw. The 2-meter-long hell chainsaw suddenly woke up, and the blue fire erupting between the teeth illuminated the night sky. Seeing her mummy so fierce, little Teresa's eyes lit up. The angel's wings regenerated at this moment, and the opponent covered with the golden armor rushed towards Bayonetta again. Let's dance, darling. The roar of the chainsaw swallowed her voice. Bayonetta's rushing figure dragged out an afterimage, and when the first saw cut into the angel's right wing, feathers and sparks were thrown in a spiral. She deliberately let the saw blade get stuck between the bones, and took advantage of the angel's struggle to fly into the air, with her legs crossed in an arc like a swan's neck. The black battlesuit hissed under the violent movement, and sweat slid into the crotch along the spine groove. This is the right rhythm. Bayonetta panted and twisted her waist, and the chainsaw pushed violently into the angel's body. The black hair soaked in holy blood stuck to her cheeks. She stretched out her tongue to catch a drop of golden blood, and then squinted her eyes in enjoyment. The chainsaw was inserted into the enemy's spine and continued to operate. Bang! The next second, Bayonetta fell from the sky to the ground, and the body of the golden armored angel, which was cut in half by the hell chainsaw, fell heavily. Blood spurted out immediately. The angel's body and blood exploded like fireworks behind the enchanting Bayonetta. Mommy, seeing Bayonetta handsomely execute the giant angel, Teresa ran over excitedly and hugged the other's legs. I said, I'm not your mommy. With a slight sigh, Bayonetta lifted up the glasses wearing Teresa by the clothes she was holding. But, you are the mommy, and the mommy is the witch, Teresa said a little aggrieved. The little Shiba in her arms suddenly moved, made a grinning gesture, and jumped from Teresa's arms to the ground, staring at Bayonetta. Bayonetta ignored the vengeful little Shiba Inu, and asked Teresa, Baby, why did you come here? She was on the train to Vigrad. Bayonetta, who had been sleeping for 500 years, had forgotten all her past memories. She only vaguely remembered her childhood memories, so she could recognize Teresa as her childhood self. But her memories in between had all disappeared. For this reason, she had been looking for the lost memories in between. Unexpectedly, just after sitting down and looking at the scenery outside the train, she fell into a dream again. No. This is not a dream. Or rather, it is not just a dream, this should be a time gap somewhere. My consciousness entered a time crack somewhere, just like last time. And the girl in front of me, that is, my childhood self, she also entered the special space formed by the time crack like me, because this is how the two selves of different periods can meet. The two were not dreaming, but their consciousness entered the space formed by the time crack. And the angels who were chasing me also followed me into this time crack. She was thinking, and suddenly heard a click sound. She lowered her head and looked at the ground. A round badge fell on the ground. Curious, Bayonetta picked up the badge. There was a world tree on the front of the badge, and the word Padric was written on the back. Padric, repeating the name, Bayonetta asked Teresa in confusion, What is this? This is the badge that Daddy gave me. Give it back to me, Mommy. Teresa reached out to Bayonetta for it. Just treat this as a gift for me. Bayonetta smiled slightly, holding the badge in her right hand and said to her. No, this is a gift from Daddy, Teresa cried anxiously. I won't ask you for it for nothing, I can exchange it, baby. As she said that, she handed the 2 pistols stuck in her legs to Teresa. Teresa wanted to refuse, but the other party handed it to her without any explanation. The next second, the moment she touched the pistol, Teresa woke up leisurely. She found herself back on the farm. Under the moonlight, the 2 exaggerated pistols in her hands were shining. At the same time, the world of Bayonetta. Bayonetta woke up on the train, looking at the badge in her hand, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth with a black mole. Outside the window, a speeding motorcycle was chasing after her. Standing up, Bayonetta took out the 2 remaining pistols. Putting a lollipop in her mouth, Bayonetta showed a charming smile. Let's dance, baby. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 843 The Witch is sneaking around in the attic at night. Padrick Farm. Teresa looked at the gun in her hand in surprise. The design of the gun combines Gothic style and mechanical sense. The surface is engraved with complex runes or patterns, and the muzzle is decorated with roses, thorns and other elements. It looks cooler than the explosive Bang Bang gun. I don't know if I can ask my brother Wu-Ming to help design one. What she didn't know was that Bayonetta's gun was made by Rodan, a weapon merchant in Hell, and was designed specifically for hunting angels. The gun body was engraved with runes that restrain angels, echoing her identity as a witch. Such enchanted firearms are not something that can be made casually. Although she couldn't let it go, Teresa looked at the time after playing with it for a while. It was already late at night. If Dad found out that she was not sleeping but hiding here to play with guns secretly, he would definitely be unhappy. Walking to the bed, she secretly stuffed the 2 pistols under the bed. This way we won't be discovered. After hiding the pistol, Teresa sat down on the bed, hugged the little Shiba Inu and said to her, Tell me, little Shiba Inu, will I become a powerful witch like Mommy in the future? Bayonetta, who used a samurai sword and a hell chainsaw to split the angel, left a deep impression on Teresa. I also want to be a witch like Mommy, but unfortunately I can't go hunting those angels because I have to stay on the farm. Sighing at the little Shiba Inu, Teresa lay on the bed and looked at the ceiling. The moonlight outside was clear, and Teresa wanted to sleep, but she didn't feel sleepy at all. She felt warm all over, as if she was filled with power. This should be the witch's night that Gloria said. The night of the full moon is when the witch's power is the most abundant. After saying this to the little Shiba Inu, Teresa stood up and looked at the silver plate-like moon outside. During the day, Gloria had taught her how to use her physical talents to condense the magic power in her body. Maybe I can try the method Gloria taught me. After all, I want to be a witch who surpasses Mommy. Because she had just witnessed Bayonetta's battle, Teresa, who was full of emotions, decided to try her magic talent on the night of the full moon. Taking the chalk from the drawer, Teresa tiptoed outside. Arriving at the farm attic, Teresa used chalk to draw a pentagram on the ground. She remembered that the magic book she had secretly read introduced the magic of summoning hell creatures. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the skylight of the attic. The moonlight happened to fall on her homemade magic circle. It was a crooked pentagram drawn on the old carpet with chalk. In the name of the moon, Teresa closed her eyes and silently chanted the spell. The fur ball on the tip of her nightcap shook wildly with the movement. I command the servants of hell to appear. A few seconds later, in silence, Teresa opened her eyes. The only response to her was the squeaking of the mice in the attic. Teresa angrily bit the lollipop hidden in her pajamas pocket. She suddenly remembered that in the book she read, it was mentioned that summoning hell creatures as servants requires sacrifice. Thinking of this, she immediately came down from the attic and tiptoed into the kitchen and living room. 5 minutes later, the ultimate temptation was placed in the center of the magic circle: Peter's treasured raspberry gem, 3 glass marbles, and Raven's favorite apple pie brought from the living room. Abracadabra, Teresa turned in a circle and silently chanted the spell, while poking her finger at the jam jar. This was her own spellcasting gesture. A giant lizard from hell, A winged fire-breathing dragon. Or bat that can turn into candy. She had just finished chanting the spell when the carpet suddenly twitched and wrapped around her ankle. Ah! Teresa screamed and fell into the center of the pentagram, and the jam was all over her bunny pajamas. Purple smoke spewed out from the hole in the center of the pentagram and condensed into a pink meatball wearing a party hat. Puff! The meatball made a fart-like sound and bounced onto the tip of Teresa's nose. The hell thug she summoned had no eyes, but 2 rows of white milk teeth were exposed in its cracked mouth. Teresa was stunned when she saw the hell creature she summoned. She thought she had summoned a powerful monster that could help her fight like her mommy, but how could it be such a small strange creature in front of her? Can you breathe fire? The little witch poked the meatball with a branch. The other party burped and spit out half a scone. Can it be invisible? Teresa lifted her nightcap to cover it. The meatball began to absorb cotton fibers, and the hat instantly turned into a fishing net. Then at least it can fly. She grabbed the meatball, hesitated for a moment, and tried to throw it out of the window. Bang! A dull sound rang out in the attic room. The pink jelly-like creature stuck to the glass and slowly slid down, leaving a shiny trail of mucus on the window frame, like an oversized slug. Duh. 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 Just as Teresa was wondering what abilities the hell creature she summoned had, she suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside. It seemed that someone was approaching here. Teresa immediately held her breath nervously and pinched the mouth of the creature she summoned with her hand to prevent it from making any sound. SHH. Quiet, someone is coming. Knock. 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 The attic door was suddenly knocked. Is there anyone inside? Mark's voice sounded outside. No one. Please go back, Teresa whispered to the outside. Mark, coughing, Mark, who was a little amused, whispered to his sister inside. It's very late, Teresa, go back to bed quickly. Mark originally got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and heard the sound coming from the attic, so he came to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, Teresa was actually inside. And she confessed without even asking. After saying a few words to Teresa inside, Mark turned around and left, walking towards his room. When there was no sound outside, Teresa breathed a sigh of relief. Taking a deep breath, she stuffed the meatball into her pajamas. The cold touch gave her goosebumps. On the way back to the bedroom, the meatball half emerged from the collar and curiously nibbled her pigtail. Bad dog, Teresa pinched the meatball's mouth, but was licked by her saliva instead. This guy had secretly eaten the jam at some point, making her hands full of jam. After returning to the room, Teresa lay on the bed and threw the meatball into the cardboard box. She thought she had summoned a low-level creature from hell, the kind that had no intelligence and was useless in fighting. The next morning, Teresa sneaked into the dining room with dark circles under her eyes. The meatball was hidden in her skirt and swayed as she walked. The kitchen was filled with fragrance, and Persephone was making breakfast. On the dining table in the living room, Persephone had already prepared food. Puff, the meatball was tempted by the aroma of bacon, and it bounced to the center of the dining table and swallowed a whole fried egg in one gulp. In the living room, besides Teresa, Wei was also sitting aside reading a book. When she heard the sound, she looked up and saw a shocking scene. What is this? Looking at the pink meatball on the dining table, Wei asked her in disbelief. Did you do this, Bayonetta? No, of course not, Violet. This is the food preservation magic I developed. Teresa grabbed the meatball and stuffed it into her pocket. Okay, now there's nothing left. Wei looked at Teresa's actions and fell silent. Are you kidding yourself? Wei has become interested in the meatball in Teresa's pocket, so she will naturally not give up. Wei, with eyes full of curiosity, walked to Teresa and reached out to grab her pocket. Let me see what's hidden in your pocket. No, Teresa quickly stepped back. But her small body was quickly caught by Wei. I'm the unboxing champion, you can't escape me. Wei grabbed Teresa and ran to her pocket. At the critical moment, the meatball suddenly made a loud snoring sound, rolled out of Teresa's pocket, jumped into the cereal bowl on the table and took a milk bath. Then, in front of Wei's stunned eyes, the meatball dove into the black coffee with the posture of a diving champion. It swelled to the size of a pudding, floated comfortably on the rim of the cup, and spit out more a bubble at the stunned Wei. This is Daddy's coffee. Wei looked at this guy and dared to provoke her, the unboxing champion, so she rolled up her sleeves and planned to teach this slime guy a lesson. Then Wei stepped on the chair and rushed to the center of the dining table, but slipped the next second. The moment her slippers and the tablecloth slipped violently, she watched the meatball bounce to other food on the table. The sound of ding ding dong dong rang out. The food that was quickly served was messed up by this slime. Seeing that the monster she summoned had messed up the breakfast right from the start, Teresa's little face suddenly turned bitter. I messed up breakfast, and my dad will definitely scold me. A few minutes later, Peter heard the sound and went downstairs. He saw Teresa, who was full of frustration, and the meatball in her arms. What is this? Teresa, Peter asked her in confusion. Sorry, Dad. Teresa apologized to Peter with some discomfort. I wanted to try to summon a monster last night on the night of the full moon, but I summoned it, and I also took your raspberry jam and Raven's apple pie as a sacrifice. At this time, Raven also found that the apple pie she just bought was gone. Looking at the meatball sleeping soundly in Teresa's arms, Raven asked her in shock, Did you touch my apple pie? Sorry, sister. Teresa apologized obediently, with an expression that I knew I was wrong. Peter took the slime from Teresa's arms. The soft meatball is indeed fun, but it doesn't seem to have any special abilities. Teresa, what are its abilities? Chapter 844 Bayonetta, Daddy, tell me a fairy tale. Peter asked Teresa. I don't know, maybe it's eating. Teresa looked at the destroyed breakfast food with a guilty look and whispered to Peter. Eating? What kind of superpower is this? Although he wanted to complain, since his daughter liked it, Peter couldn't say anything. If you like, you can treat it as your pet, just like a little Shiba Inu. The monster may not be good at fighting. Peter handed the meatball to Teresa and rubbed her hair. However, you are still young, Teresa. This kind of behavior of summoning hell monsters, you can't do it without authorization in the future. Otherwise, if you summon an uncontrollable monster, it may hurt you. Understand? I understand, Daddy. Seeing that Peter was not angry because she ruined the breakfast, Teresa hugged Peter's legs, raised her head and said sweetly to Peter, Thank you, Daddy. You are the best daddy in the world. I love you, Daddy. Listening to the flattery of the future witch, Peter was in a good mood and picked up the little witch. Daddy loves you too. Raven next to him looked at this scene and felt a little jealous. Although this little Lolita looks silly and cute, she is better at flattering her father than Bakugo. So annoying. While holding Teresa, Peter remembered Bayonetta's summoning magic in the original world line. When facing a huge enemy, Bayonetta can summon a powerful monster to attack it. This summoning ability corresponds to the concept of traditional witches and is obtained through a contract with the devil. The monsters of various forms have their specific origins and are not unrelated to Christianity and demonology in reality. For example, the dragon-shaped monster Gomorrah is likely to come from the two ancient cities of Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed by heavenly fire in the Bible Genesis. The crow-shaped monster Malphas comes from the famous demonology document The Little Key of King Solomon, which describes the commander-in-chief of the 39th Legion of the 40 Legions of Hell, a devil who appeared in front of humans in the form of a crow. In addition to these monster creatures, Bayonetta can also use torture tools such as the guillotine and the Iron Maiden to deal with angels. The torture attack method used against demons is usually to directly summon demons to attack. Some enemies will drop weapons after being killed by torture. The dropped weapons can be picked up and used and are extremely powerful, but each weapon has a durability limit and will automatically disappear after being used a certain number of times. I wonder if Teresa will drop any props or weapons after killing the creatures of hell in the DC world? Stroke his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. But soon Peter frowned. Although witches can summon creatures of hell, through the Witch-Demon Blood Alliance, witches also satisfy their own desires and obtain unparalleled magic power, but all this is not without cost. On the contrary, once combined with the devil, witches must give up their religious obligations in the world, and there will be no return of souls. That is to say, after the witches die, their souls can neither go to heaven nor go to hell. Their destination is roughly like the scene when the level challenge fails in the game being swallowed up by the devil in purgatory. Looking at the pink meatball in his arms, Peter shook his head. If I restrict Teresa's magic talent too much now, she may not be able to reach the level of her previous life in the future. So this kind of thing cannot be banned blindly. As long as she likes it, I will be there to protect her, and there should be no problem. Even if Teresa's soul cannot go to heaven in the future, it is not a big deal. Heaven itself is not rare. In the morning, Teresa put the meatball into the bag and came to the church. Is this the monster you summoned? Gloria asked in surprise in the church. Yes, it's the first creature I summoned to follow me in fighting, although it can only eat now, Teresa said hesitantly, but Dad said that summoned beasts are not necessarily used for fighting. Well, Your father is right. Sometimes, the beasts you summon may not be good at fighting. They may also play a role in other aspects. It all depends on the owner." As she spoke, she reached out and stroked Teresa's hair. "You can summon hell creatures so quickly, which means you have a strong magical talent, and this talent is even unmatched by your sister and brother." Teresa raised her head curiously and asked her, "Sister Gloria, are you also a witch like Mommy?" Which, after a moment of silence, Gloria laughed. "No, I'm not. I'm just good at studying some ancient documents, and I've mastered some witchcraft passed down from ancient times. If you like, Bayonetta, I can teach you all of it." But, tilting her head, Teresa said hesitantly, "I summoned the creatures of hell. Is this considered blasphemy?" She wanted to say that she saw Mommy kill the angel. But she felt that if she said it, the other party would definitely be angry, so she quickly shut her mouth. After all, the other party was a nun, and she couldn't say that the angel was killed. "No, of course it doesn't count. You didn't use it to do bad things, did you?" After comforting Teresa, Gloria taught Teresa to sense the magical elements in the air. "You can sense the water element in the air, Bayonetta. This is a feeling you can touch. Close your eyes and you can try to feel it." Teresa sat down and silently chanted the spell taught by the other party, pulsating with the rhythm of the tide with her eyes closed. Teresa's voice awakened the sleeping moss, and the floating water droplets gathered into vortex above the altar. Her black hair floated up and spread out in the air, moving as if it had life. She sensed the water element right away and formed a vortex. Looking at the black hair floating in front of her, the nun was stunned. Teresa's talent shocked her. She didn't know that Teresa belonged to the Shadow Witch clan. As a clan of shadow witches, their hair has the ability to change. And hair is an important medium for shadow witches to cast spells. Sometimes because of the use of spells, the clothes made of hair will disappear, leaving part of the body exposed. They can also summon monsters to devour angels, and at this time they will make their bodies completely naked. In addition, the Shadow Witch clan can even change into animals. Teresa's real mother, Rosa, has the ability to change into animals to move. She can turn into a tiger to run quickly, turn into an eagle to fly briefly in the air, turn into a swarm of bumblebees to avoid attacks, and turn into a cobra to swim quickly in the water. Now Teresa is still in her infancy, so naturally she can't use her hair to cast spells, nor can she change into an animal. However, the magic power emanating from her still shocked Gloria. Gloria's eyes turned white for a moment, and soon returned to normal. She was now becoming more and more interested in Teresa. Licking her lips, she stood up and said to Teresa, "Bayonetta, do you want to summon creatures from hell?" "Yes, I want to protect Daddy and become a witch to protect Daddy in the future." "Then let me tell you, Bayonetta, the various demons and monsters in hell, their real names, how to summon them, and how they fight." Gloria smiled and wanted to tell her the spell to summon the monsters of hell and their various abilities. "But you want to become my follower, are you willing?" "No, I don't want to, because I'm Daddy's daughter." Although Teresa didn't know why the other party knew the real names of all the monsters and demons in hell, she still refused sternly. Gloria, who didn't expect the other party to refuse, was stunned. "Well, it seems that you are really stubborn, but it doesn't matter. I will teach you even if you disagree, because we are good friends," Gloria said to her with a smile. At night, at Padrick Farm, Peter tucked a corner of Teresa's quilt, kissed her and prepared to leave. "Dad," Teresa, who was holding a Shiba Inu doll, leaned her head out and asked Peter, "Dad, can you tell me a fairy tale?" "Fairy tale?" After a pause, Peter walked to the bed and squatted down. "Why do you want to hear fairy tales, Teresa?" "Because Mommy used to like to tell me fairy tales in the dark," Teresa said a little uncomfortably. "Then Mommy disappeared. She said she would find me in the future, but I haven't heard her tell me fairy tales for a long time." After hearing this, Peter gently stroked Teresa's hair. "One day, you will see Mommy. Dad believes you can do it with your own strength, but, Daddy, can I really meet Mommy and become the kind of person you want me to be? I read in a book that the road from a child to an adult is long, and it is easy to stagnate." "Of course you can." He picked up a storybook at hand, but soon put it down again. "Dad will tell you a fairy tale about the Son of Light." "Teresa, Son of Light?" "Yes, our life is neither short nor long. Every second we meet a brand new self. Although people will encounter many troubles in their lives, we must not stagnate because of fear of trouble. Only after experiencing it can we know whether we can solve it." The fairy tale Son of Light tells such a story. At the beginning, The weather the heroine saw was always gloomy, and the suppressed anger always made her feel a little uneasy, and then she questioned whether the path she chose at the beginning was correct. Peter said slowly to his daughter, but later, all she saw was beautiful weather, because she already understood that she might be only one step away from the light. Keep moving forward, don't stop, break through the haze, and we will be able to see the most beautiful scenery. When we look back, we will also be able to find colors that we have never seen before. It's just that at that time, we were surrounded by the so-called troubles and ignored the eyes that can find colors. Chapter 845. You are my Princess Aurora. And, your home is your harbor when you encounter any difficulties. Although she didn't fully understand what Peter said, Teresa nodded. She understood the last sentence. Dad, what's the name of the heroine in the fairy tale Child of Light? Her name is Aurora. Peter reached out and stroked his daughter's hair, whispering the story of Aurora to her. Aurora was born into an Austrian noble family. Her mother was a mysterious duchess. After her death, she was raised by her father alone. On Easter Eve in 1895, the night when the Duke married his new wife, Aurora died of a cold. When she was found, the light in her eyes disappeared and she was declared dead. However, her soul did not disappear, but awakened in a magical continent called Lemuria and began her journey of rebirth. Peter first explained the background of the story, and then began to tell the story. The flames in the fireplace suddenly became lower. Aurora lay on the four-poster bed. The velvet curtains were lifted and fell by the draft. The perfume of her new stepmother still lingered on the porch, like a cold snake wrapped around her ankles. The maid said that the snowstorm stopped all the clocks in Vienna, and Aurora's body gradually became cold. Teresa listened to Peter's story quietly. The moonlight projected from the windowsill outside sprinkled on the ground, forming a dark intersection. Later, in Lemuria, Aurora met the firefly partner Glimmer. You can also call it Ali Wong Wong. Aurora learned from the prophet of the dream that only by gathering the sun, moon and stars taken away by the Queen of Darkness can she be resurrected and return to the real world to reunite with her father. Listening to Peter's story, Teresa asked Peter with some discomfort, so she can't see Daddy? Yes, she needs to complete these missions in order to grow up and return to her own world, just like you can't see Mommy now. Peter paused and continued, when Aurora opened her eyes, she was lying in the evening primrose. Each petal was as translucent as if pickled in moonlight. An elf holding a lantern said to her, as Peter told this story, Teresa became fascinated. The moon goddess was imprisoned in an ice crystal cage, her long hair was a melting galaxy. Aurora stepped on the colorful silk throne by Lubella and jumped into the air. The ice chips pierced by the tip of the sword turned into a diamond rain. The subsequent storyline, like all fairy tales, has a happy ending. It turns out that the darkness of Lemuria originated from the conspiracy of Aurora's stepmother, the Queen of Darkness. She stole the elements of light and attempted to shroud the world in eternal night. Aurora gradually awakened her power, gradually defeated her enemies through battles, and regained the light. Aurora was also crying, and her tears dripped on the giant sword, awakening the sealed sun god. At this moment, the snow outside the window stopped, the moonlight suddenly became hot, and the icicles made a crisp sound like wind chimes when they fell from the eaves. Peter also narrated to the end. The moment Aurora stepped into the mirror palace, the crystal dome suddenly reflected a rainbow cage, her red hair burned in countless mirrors, and each reflection wore a crown of a different style. The queen on the left held the eternal night hourglass and chuckled, "Your father has forgotten you long ago," and the warrior on the right pointed the sword to her heart, "Admit it. You are afraid of being abandoned again." Although she was ridiculed that her father had forgotten her a long time ago, Aurora still believed that her father would not forget her. Her father had been with her since she was a child. How could he forget his daughter? So she raised her sword and stabbed it into the mirror without hesitation. In this way, Aurora successfully gathered the sun, moon, and stars, defeated the Queen of Darkness, and broke the curse. After Lemuria regained its light, she returned to the real world and reunited with her grieving father, bringing a warm and slightly regretful end to the story. After Peter finished telling the story, he reached out and stroked her hair. When she first arrived in Lemuria, Aurora was naive and ignorant, and even mistakenly thought she was in a dream. As the adventure progressed, she faced death, betrayal and responsibility, and gradually grew into a brave and resolute princess. She learned to use her strength to protect others, and her image also changed from a young girl wearing a big crown and holding a huge sword to an elegant and courageous leader. Wow! After listening to Peter's story, Teresa sighed. Her eyes looked straight at Peter, sparkling. Dad, I also want to be a girl like Aurora. I feel we are very similar. Although her journey was long and firm, she grew up to be a girl that her dad is proud of. Peter thought to himself that if the two of you become the protagonists in children's games and adventure stories, of course you will be similar. If one day, Dad, I also enter the world of Lemuria, no matter what happens, I will return to this world to find you, just like Aurora. Of course, Dad will do the same. Peter stroked her hair gently, because Dad can't leave you either. You are Dad's Princess Aurora. Hearing Peter say this, Teresa was immediately moved to tears. It turned out that in her father's heart, she was not a witch, but a princess. At the same time, Lone Pine Ridge. The night was as dark as ink, and the forest of Smallville Town was shrouded in an eerie silence. The moonlight penetrated the gaps in the dense forest, casting mottled shadows on the ground, like countless pairs of prying eyes. Something seemed to be lurking in the woods in the dark night. At this time, the darkness was broken by a beam of light, and someone entered the woods. A police car entered the woods, followed by more police officers who drove up. Officer Chandler received a report half an hour ago, a bizarre death case. Another hunter's body was found hanging on the branches of an oak tree, with vines entangled all over his body, his skin shriveled like a dead tree, as if his vitality was instantly drawn away by some force. This is not an ordinary homicide. This is the second homicide here. As he spoke, Chandler squatted down and touched the vines lightly with his fingertips. The residual tingling sensation made him retract his hands suddenly. The surface of these vines was glowing with a strange green fluorescence, and there was faint liquid flowing in the veins, just like a living thing. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from behind him. The moment he turned around, a vine jumped out like a poisonous snake and wrapped around his ankle. He tried to break free, but found that the power of the vine was far beyond ordinary, and could even suppress his strength. More vines hung down from the treetops, weaving into a dense net, forcing him into the depths of the swamp. Help! Chandler hurriedly called for help. The nearby police were stunned when they saw this scene. After reacting, everyone immediately shot at the vines. Bang! 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 The sound of bullets shooting rang out in the silent night. Chapter 846 Peter's speculation about Lone Pine Ridge, evil hell creatures. Help! Help! Officer Chandler, who was captured, shouted for help to the people around him. The police, who had come to their senses, immediately fired at the vines. But the vines were very flexible, and all the bullets fired by the police hit the ground. In addition, the police were afraid that the bullets would hurt Chandler, so they did not dare to get close to shoot, and could only watch him being dragged away. Just as Chandler, who was on his back and about to be dragged away, a voice suddenly rang out in the forest. In Chandler's astonished sight, a dull bang sounded. A black shadow suddenly appeared in the forest and cut off the vines that bound Chandler. With a snap, Chandler, who was hit by inertia, rolled and hid a tree next to him. A dull sound rang out, and Chandler, who was holding his stomach, cried out in pain. "Are you okay, Mr. Sheriff?" Chandler staggered to his feet and saw a black shadow standing in the shadow of the bushes in front of him, talking to him. "Peter? Is that you?" Hearing the familiar voice, even though he couldn't see the other person, Chandler could easily tell that it was Peter who saved him. The place where Chandler rolled and hid was still some distance away from the police. Peter used rune magic to block the perception of the surrounding police and slowly walked out of the shadows. He was just in the room, telling Teresa the story of Aurora, the child of light, and was about to return to his room. After hearing the sudden sound of a faint gunshot, Peter immediately activated his super speed and rushed to the scene. Unexpectedly, he encountered vines dragging Chandler and quickly pulling him into the swamp. Seeing this scene, Peter rescued the other party. "It's very dangerous to come here at this time, Chandler." Peter looked at Officer Chandler, who was a little embarrassed, and said to him, "Yes, it's very dangerous here, those vines." Chandler said to him with lingering fear, "Why do these vines attack people? It's obvious that this forest has been occupied by some evil force," Peter said, frowning and looking around. "There is a smell of corruption and death here in Lone Pine Ridge. It is obvious that the creatures occupying this place are not normal creatures. The smell of sulfur, corruption and death is very much like the smell of hell," Peter said to Chandler with mixed feelings. "If it is a creature from hell, I suggest that this place be sealed off in the future and no one is allowed to enter." Now Peter suspected that this forest was targeted by some creature from hell. However, what surprised him was that no matter how he explored and investigated this forest, He found nothing valuable. Being able to hide from his eyes, Peter suspected that the existence of this suspected hell creature should be at the level of a hell lord. Regarding the existence of the hell lord, Peter had previously come into contact with a Lucifer. But it is obvious that the other party who could be defeated by the young Star-Lord must not be the real Lucifer. After living in the DC world for a long time, as Peter's life experience increased, as well as his experience in the Dream Kingdom, controlling the dreams of human beings, Peter gradually understood the true power of Lucifer, the master of hell. Lucifer is very powerful. He and his brother Archangel Michael both have half the power of God. Lucifer is an archangel created by God. After God created the world, he rebelled against God and was expelled by God into the void called chaos. This space eventually became a vast, desolate and barren land called hell. Lucifer never shaped the physical form of hell. Hell evolved around Lucifer. Hell became the destination of dead souls, and Lucifer has ruled hell for 1 billion years. In addition, although Lucifer can create and shape anything he can imagine, he is still God's creation. He cannot create something out of nothing, and can only rely on existing materials to create. Only Michael, who has the power of creation, and the great craftsman creator can create new materials. So Peter doesn't quite believe that the villain last time will be Lucifer. Stroking his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. Although he has some understanding of the current situation of hell, he is not a senior person. Maybe he can ask professionals for advice. For example, Zatanna? He remembered that Zatanna went to Las Vegas after the end of the True Wizard tournament. Maybe he can ask Zatanna for help. He was lost in thought when Chandler interrupted his thoughts and asked him worriedly, "Peter, even you can't deal with the creatures hidden here." "No, I can't. I can only remove these vines, but I can't see through the power behind these vines." Shaking his head, he said to Chandler, "And even if I remove them all, I'm afraid they will come back to life soon." Chandler frowned as he listened to Peter's words. "So we can only temporarily ban the residents of the town from coming here, that's the only way." After Peter finished speaking to Chandler, he removed the magic barrier and said to him, "Let's go and take the victim's body back first, that's the only way." Chandler sighed and thanked Peter. "Anyway, I have to thank you, Peter, you saved me again." "You're welcome." Peter patted him on the shoulder. "We are friends, aren't we?" Chandler was stunned for a moment after listening to Peter's words, then looked at him with a complicated expression and said, "Yes, we are friends, always have been." He has known Peter for so many years, and this is the first time that the other party has said that he is his friend. Chandler felt a little emotional when he saw Peter's face, which had not changed much in the past 10 years. On the other side, after Peter and Chandler left, a figure appeared on the Lone Pine Ridge Road. Gloria, the ranger who suddenly appeared, looked at the back of the police car going away and whispered in a low voice, "Peter Patrick, the new master of the Dream Kingdom." The night was getting darker. Zatanna didn't know that Peter was going to call her. Las Vegas at night was brightly lit and bustling. For other cities, it was completely asleep, but for Las Vegas, it was just the beginning of a rich nightlife. The night in Las Vegas never really sleeps. After the heat wave of the desert receded, the neon lights opened thousands of pupils and licked every inch of the asphalt road. On the glass curtain wall of the casino behemoth, the electronic waterfall poured out a never-ending rain of gold coins, and the woman in the backless skirt in the reflection stuffed the chips into her chest and laughed excitedly. The homeless man huddled under a billboard that read "Welcome to the City of Dreams," counting the coins he begged for. One was enough to buy a glass of ice water, two could buy a bottle of moonshine mixed with cough syrup. The LED screen above his head was playing a wedding advertisement in a loop, and the plastic angel on the church spire was swaying in the wind. Bang! A dull explosion suddenly came from the front. Then, in the homeless man's stunned eyes, he saw a sound of breaking through the air above his head. In his shut eyes, he saw something like a magic carpet flying not far from his head. And there were people on the flying magic carpet. No, it's not a magic carpet. The homeless man soon recognized that this was not a magic carpet, but an enlarged poker card. There were actually two people standing on the poker card fighting. A man in a black suit waved his wand at Zatanna, who was standing on the giant poker card. Normally, I would say to the people standing on this, "Take off with me." But now, I don't like to be in the limelight. The man cast a spell on Zatanna, who was dressed as a magician, wearing fishnet stockings and a tall hat. Flowers into wand magic. Zatanna immediately used irony magic to turn the man's wand into flowers. Zatanna was a little irritated at this time. His father had told him before that Las Vegas was a tricky town. Of course, the tricky things his father said came from those mockers and drunkards, not the Royal Flush organization that was attacking her in front of her. A few months ago, Zatanna took a periodic contract, so she went deep into this paradise on Earth. It happened that the leader of the Flush gang led his men to launch this high-risk poker game, trying to rob the casino in Las Vegas. So Zatanna is now in the air above the largest casino in this area. Bang! After using magic to turn the wand in the opponent's hand into flowers, Zatanna kicked at the opponent fiercely. As a result, the opponent easily blocked it. The neon lights of Las Vegas were boiling under her feet, and Zatanna's high heels were tapping on a giant floating ace of spades. The edge of the playing card cut through the night wind, making a sharp buzzing sound, and the leader of the opposite gang, the boss of the Flush gang, was looking at her. His black suit was embellished with broken diamonds, which made people's eyes hurt. "My dear, you are going to suffer a little," the leader of the Flush gang said while sweeping the magic wand that had been transformed back. With a bang, the neon tubes on the entire long street suddenly exploded. Countless glass fragments stagnated in the air, turned into sharp plum blossom darts, and rushed towards Zatanna like a rainstorm. Facing the opponent's attack, Zatanna immediately jumped out of the playing card she was stepping on, suspended in the air, and used the magic wand to draw an arc with her backhand, and the spell she recited backwards made ripples in the air. Stop! The group of glass spikes strangely stopped in front of her. But because it takes concentration to stay suspended in the air, Zatanna lost her concentration and was hit by the next attack from the Flush gang leader. She fell into the sky with a groan. In the shocked eyes of passers-by and beggars, Zatanna continued to fall down and was about to crash into the magnificent fountain on the street. "Oh, no, this is bad," the beggar, who thought Zatanna was going to be in trouble, immediately stood up from the ground to watch the fun. Chapter 847 Zatanna, date? I need to ask my godfather. At the moment of falling at a high speed, Zatanna pointed her cane at the fountain. I didn't soak the fountain. As she chanted the anti-verbal magic, the fountain changed immediately. As if driven by a powerful force, the fountain rushed upwards. Zatanna, who was hit, took advantage of the recoil and flew into the sky. That's much better. Adjusting her high magic hat, Zatanna faced the opponent standing on the playing cards. Okay, the party is over. Under Zatanna's control, the static glass instantly ignited a blue flame, turned around and shot at the gang leader, leaving a comet-like tail. The giant playing card under the feet of the gang leader in a suit and leather shoes suddenly stood up. The gang leader, who was standing a little unsteady, hurriedly dodged the flames controlled by Zatanna. Bang! Zatanna, who was close to him, punched the opponent's chin and pushed him back violently. The gang leader who was punched wanted to retreat and escape, but was surrounded by blazing flames the next second. Do you like card games? Boss, try my favorite. Zatanna caught up and released the irony magic to the opponent. Wait and catch. Boom. With a burst of flames, in the horrified eyes of the boss, he saw the flames formed an orange rope and quickly approached him. Seeing that he was about to lose to Zatanna, the leader of the Flush immediately flew forward. Amid the screams of the crowd, he grabbed a young girl and lifted her into the air. Let us go, witch, or this woman in my hand will die. Facing the threat of the Flush leader, Zatanna shrugged her shoulders and held a stack of playing cards in her hand. Whatever you say, boss. Before she finished speaking, she chanted the spell, card shuffle. Boom. As she chanted the spell, the playing cards in her hand flew out and a deafening explosion occurred. The boss, who was hit by the explosion, fell down with the hostage. Amid the girl's screams, Zatanna quickly flew over and hugged her. With a bang, Zatanna, holding the girl, landed smoothly. Putting down the frightened girl, Zatanna looked at the citizens of Las Vegas who were watching around. Seeing Zatanna's handsome and neat performance, everyone applauded. Thank you. Thank you for your applause. Zatanna took off her hat and bowed to the applauding citizens, just like she often did when she took a bow on stage. After dealing with the leader of the Flush gang, Zatanna walked towards the manager's office of the casino. With a bang, she threw the bag of US dollars in her hand to the manager. Your bounty is now safely back in your hands, Mr. Raymond. Seeing Zatanna throwing the money over, the corner of the man sitting in the manager's seat twitched slightly. Please, Zatanna, my father is Mr. Raymond. He stood up and said to Zatanna, you can call me Sony. I regard us as close relatives. As he spoke, he took out the money from the bag and put it into the safe. 30 years ago, Benjamin Raymond entrusted the great Zatanna to make our casino the first to make headlines. I am very happy that tonight it will be his daughter who will start a new world in the Raymond era, especially since she also provides such a safe guarantee. Zatanna's face did not show much expression in response to the manager's compliment. She said to him, "If my duty is to solve troubles, then immediate action is my way of solving them." Manager Sony nodded. "I also heard that in addition to being a magician representing justice, you also provide magical protection to civilians who encounter supernatural phenomena." Zatanna glanced at the portrait behind him. "Thank you, but my resume says more than that." At the same time, she guessed in her heart that the portrait hanging on the wall should be the portrait of Sony's father Raymond. "There's one more thing I want to know about you, Zatanna. It's a question I want to know until I die." "What, are you single?" Seeing his serious expression, Zatanna looked at him unexpectedly and asked, "Are you asking me out?" "It's hard to say." "Will you agree?" "No, I have to ask my godfather's opinion. Also, generally speaking, I don't mix business with fun, but I think we can have a drink after the fun, of course, as a tribute to our father." As she said that, she picked up the wine glass next to her and poured herself a glass of wine. Sony was stunned for a moment, then picked up the glass and clinked it with Zatanna. "I think they will agree." After drinking the wine, Zatanna put down the glass and left. After she left, Sony, holding a wine glass, looked at the father in the portrait and asked, "How is it?" At this time, the man in the portrait actually spoke. "Very interesting," Sony asked in a daze. "She is already the most powerful magician in the world, and you just find it interesting?" He said to the man in the portrait, "I think you have seen how she dealt with Royal Flush. I opened the door for them to attack the poker game." The man in the portrait looked at him with contempt. "You should understand that ordinary thieves are not even enough to pose a challenge to novices, let alone the daughter of the magician's era." Sony nodded and said to the portrait, "I have heard of that old man. His daughter is better than her father." The man in the portrait listened to Sony's words and replied, "I have arranged people to test her. Only their failure can prove that she is as powerful as you said." Sony took a step closer to the portrait. "But if she defeats them, what about our deal?" Hearing what Sony said, the man in the portrait suddenly showed a ferocious face. The next moment, half of his body poked out of the painting, with a ferocious expression and dark eyes staring at Sony, who took a few steps back. "Ah, Raymond, you are still afraid of the time that is lost. You must understand that if I hadn't indulged you with kindness and given you leniency, you would have been hard to escape from my grasp many years ago." The being attached to the portrait was not the soul of Sony's father, but a devil lord of hell, Mammon. As the representative of the 7 deadly sins, Mammon represents greed. He is often portrayed as the embodiment of greed and wealth, and the shadow in the hearts of those who are devoured by endless desires. According to legend, Mammon's appearance combines luxury and weirdness. His figure is slightly bloated, and he wears a gorgeous robe inlaid with gold, silver and jewels. Every piece of jewelry flashes a dizzying light. However, this gorgeous outfit cannot hide the greed and cunning on his face. His eyes are sunken, and his eyeballs flash with a greedy green light, as if he can see through all the wealth in the world. There was always a cunning smile on his lips, revealing his infinite desire for power and wealth. At this moment, the demon lord who had signed a contract with Sony, who was infinitely eager for power and wealth, showed a terrifying smile on his lips. "I need Zatanna's soul. This is the only currency wealth worth obtaining, the essence that never perishes, and humans have always been happy to make such transactions." Mammon's eyes flashed with a look that Sony could not see clearly. "And now that hell has a big thing, everyone is looking for a little girl. Maybe I can take Zatanna as my own." Lord Mammon glanced at the trembling Sony, then slowly retreated and disappeared in the portrait. After Mammon disappeared, Sony, who was covered in cold sweat, raised his head and looked at the portrait. At this time, the portrait had returned to normal. "Little girl." Hearing what Mammon whispered, Sony fell into deep thought. What girl are the people in hell looking for? Why are they looking for a human little girl? On the other side, Zatanna also received a call from Peter. Hearing Peter's request for help, Zatanna said she would rush over as soon as possible and should be there tomorrow. She had to finish the work here first, and then go to deal with Peter's affairs with all her heart. After all, it was her godfather's call, so she still cared a lot. The next day, early in the morning, Teresa came to the church as usual, and suddenly found that there was a little girl who looked older than herself in the church. The little girl was wearing a simple long dress, about 8 or 9 years old. She had short black shoulder-length hair and stood behind Gloria a little awkwardly. This is Elaine Bellick, my daughter," Gloria introduced the little girl behind her to Teresa. I'm Teresa Patrick, you can call me Bayonetta, hello." Although she was a little shy, Teresa still pushed the frame of her glasses and took the initiative to greet the other party. "Hello." The shy Elaine Bellick walked out from behind her mother and shook hands with Teresa. Looking at Teresa, she suddenly whispered, "Bayonetta, you look a lot like a friend of mine." "Friend? Yes, a good friend," Elaine Bellick said with some melancholy. "She was later killed by a bad guy." Teresa, she didn't know how to answer this question. "Elaine, you can't ask this question to a friend you just met," Gloria said to her daughter, "otherwise you will bother others." Hearing her mother say this, Elaine Bellick quickly apologized to Teresa. "Sorry, Bayonetta, I shouldn't say this, it doesn't matter." Teresa shook her head. "Dad said I can't get angry because of other people's unintentional words, and it's nothing." After that, she asked the other party curiously, "Can I ask, how did your friend die?" Chapter 848 Joan of Arc appears. Now it was Elaine Bellick's turn to be speechless. "Okay, you two can play here, Mom has to go to work." Gloria patted the two on the shoulders and walked towards the church. "What was the name of your best friend who was killed?" Teresa asked curiously. "Her name is Mona, because she looked like her best friend." Elaine Bellick, who had a good impression of Teresa, took the initiative to open her mouth. As she talked, Teresa gradually got to know Elaine Bellick. At first, Elaine was just an ordinary little girl who lived a happy life with her parents. Her parents were Matthew Bellick and Barbara Bellick. Elaine had a best friend, Mona, but Mona's sudden death changed Elaine's peaceful and ordinary life. Elaine discovered that she had the ability to see souls, and she was with Mona's soul every day. In order to find the murderer who killed Mona, Elaine summoned her three grandmothers. Her grandmother taught her the ritual of summoning a demon to kill the murderer who killed Mona, but the summoning failed. When Elaine wanted to try again, her grandmother stopped her. "So, you didn't find out who killed Mona in the end." Teresa was very happy to meet someone of her kind. In her opinion, the other party must be a witch like herself. Otherwise, how could the other party see souls and summon demons to help her punish the murderer? Although she was very happy to meet someone of her kind, Teresa was also very concerned about whether the other party had found the murderer who killed Mona. "Yes, I finally found the murderer." Thinking of her deceased friend, Elaine lowered her head and said in a depressed mood, "I found him." "Who is it?" "It's the principal of our school." I found that the principal, Mr. Waddington, was the murderer who killed Mona." "I finally found the box where Waddington contained the drugs and tools for committing crimes, and hid a bottle of drugs." Elaine told the rest of the story. Although she found out that the principal was the murderer, she was also discovered by the principal. Principal Waddington found Elaine and tied her to a chair. Waddington, who was angry, wanted to kill Elaine. But Elaine had put an overdose of drugs in Waddington's water cup. When Waddington drank an overdose of drugs and died of poisoning, Elaine was pulled into Waddington's mind. The principal, who had superpowers in the mind, wanted to strangle Elaine. Then a mysterious man pulled her into his own world. As for why she appeared in the church, Elaine hesitated for a moment, looked around carefully, and said to Teresa, "After that incident, a woman came to open the door of my house. She told my father that she was my biological mother, so my father almost beat this woman, drove this woman away, and ordered me not to meet this woman. After that, it was this woman who kept pestering Elaine. A few days later, this woman came to Elaine's school and told her that her name was Gloria and she was Elaine's biological mother. A few passing police officers spotted her and came over, and Gloria ran off, with Elaine following. What happened next?" Later, Elaine hesitated for a moment and said to her, "Forget about what happened later, you definitely won't believe it." "Why wouldn't I believe it?" Teresa shook her head and said to her, "You can think of me as your good friend Mona. Good friends will definitely trust each other." Hearing what the other party said, Elaine sat in the fountain pool, holding her chin, and whispered to Teresa who was walking over, "We were attacked by an angel, the kind with wings. In the end, it was Aunt Gloria who rescued me. Later, in order not to affect my parents, Gloria took me out." At this point, she picked a grass at hand and said to Teresa, "You definitely won't believe what I said." "No, of course I believe you, because I have also seen angels." Teresa sat next to her and said to her, "My mother is a very powerful witch who can kill angels. If she were with you, she would definitely help you attack those angels. Of course, Dad would do the same, because Dad is also very powerful." Hearing that Teresa believed in herself, Elaine smiled. Thank you, Bayonetta. I haven't told anyone because I'm afraid that people won't believe me. But Bayonetta, are your mommy and daddy also superpowers? Like those superheroes on TV? Of course, daddy and mommy are the most powerful heroes in the world. Although she didn't quite understand what superheroes were, they were definitely very powerful. Teresa, who was in a good mood, introduced a little Shiba Inu and the pink ball in her arms to each other, and said to Elaine, since we have become friends, we should have a nickname that belongs to you and me. Elaine blinked. Okay, but what nickname do you want? I'll call you Joan of Arc, and you call me Aurora. Teresa used the protagonists of the 2 stories she heard from Peter as their nicknames. Joan of Arc. Elaine repeated her name in a low voice, and she felt a little strange. I always feel that fate seems to have opened a new door for me. At the same time, Peter met Zatanna at the farm after not seeing her for a long time. After hugging Peter intimately, Zatanna looked at Peter and said excitedly, Sir, you have become much more handsome again. No need to tell the truth. Peter smiled at her. How was your trip in Las Vegas? Not bad. I was pursued by the richest billionaire in Las Vegas. Although he is rich and gentlemanly, I said I need the advice of my parents. To be honest, I am not interested at all. After letting go of Peter, she handed the cage in her hand to Mark, who was confused. Help me hold it, Mark. This little thing refuses to eat. It only eats a carrot every day. It only takes a bite and then sniffs it, as if the carrot will do anything to it. Looking at the rabbit in the cage, Mark asked her curiously, is this your magic prop? Zatanna, you break the rabbit's legs as the price of magic. No. Zatanna glared at him. Zyagi is a female rabbit of mine, the child born to a male rabbit I found in Golden Gate Park. It's an alien species. Chapter 849, The Witch's Wooden Stake Training. My daughter is born to chop people. Hearing what Zatanna said, Mark came over curiously and cast his eyes on the rabbit with red eyes in the cage. Since this is an alien, what abilities does it have? Mark thought of Raven's fucking. Can it listen to any words in this world like fucking? Fly to the human world at dawn every morning, come back to report to Raven at night, perch on Raven's shoulder, and whisper to her? No, it can't. It's just a rabbit that is a little special, Zatanna said to Mark, and then turned her eyes to Peter. I heard about it, Zatanna. Peter didn't wait for Zatanna to speak, and said to her directly, I heard about your recent deeds. I heard that you turned all the girls at a party into pigeons before. This news was also reported in the previous newspaper. The famous Gossip Weekly newspaper made a detailed report on a group of girls turning into pigeons and falling from the sky. When Peter saw that it was in Las Vegas, he guessed that it was Zatanna who did it. After all, whether on stage or off stage, the most favorite thing for this magical girl to do is to turn into pigeons. That's none of my business. They provoked me first. Zatanna shrugged her shoulders and sat on the sofa. After taking the coffee from Persephone, she thanked her. Thank you, Persephone, you have become much more beautiful recently. You almost fascinated me. Persephone thanked her politely. Thank you for the compliment, Zach. You're welcome. Okay, let's talk about the pigeon transformation. It's not my fault. Zach, Zatanna's magic assistant, invited those girls to my place and made a mess of the room. Peter asked curiously. Then what happened? Then they turned into pigeons and migrated south for the winter. Cool. Mark next to him couldn't help but interrupt. That's so cool. Zatanna, please teach me this magic, so that I can save many unbearable retaliatory conversations. Zatanna immediately refused without hesitation. No, you must understand, Mark, there is a difference between using our abilities to restore the balance of the world and showing off everywhere. Magic is only used for defense, Mark. Did your teacher at Hogwarts teach you that? Listening to Zatanna's words, Mark looked at Peter next to him awkwardly. Seeing that Peter ignored him and coughed, Mark picked up the pizza next to him to cover up his embarrassment. Zatanna continued to say seriously, if a person brings tragedy to innocent people, it is understandable to use magic on him. Magic is applicable to these villains or other criminals I have fought against. Mark looked at Zatanna, who was teaching him with a serious expression, and whispered to her, so, those girls who were soaked all over, what balance of the world did they break? Zatanna, she was silenced by Mark. Looking at Peter, who was watching the show next to her, Zatanna glared at Mark with some annoyance. Because they provoke me. Okay, I just want to take a shower now, sir. I want to borrow the bathroom. She glared at Mark and walked quickly to the bathroom. After Zatanna closed the door with a bang, Peter looked at Mark. If you want to be popular with girls, Mark, You have to take care of girls' emotions and don't be a straight man, Peter said to the straight man Mark earnestly. I know, Dad, but I think Zatanna's rules may be made up. Mark was talking when Siri walked in. Siri, who was wearing sportswear, had just finished tennis practice with Raven in the backyard. Siri, who likes to play ball, installed a tennis court near the barn in Peter's backyard and dragged Raven to play tennis whenever she had nothing to do. Siri, who played Gwent with Peter every day and was often defeated and lost, has now been successfully helped by Peter to quit playing cards and play tennis instead of playing cards. Good morning, Peter, and little Mark. Siri, who changed the silver sword she was carrying into a tennis racket, had fine beads of sweat on her forehead, shining in the sun. Wiping the sweat off her head, she greeted Peter and Mark. It's a nice day today, Peter. Do you want to go shopping? After playing ball, Siri thought about going shopping again. No, we have something else to do, Siri. Peter rejected Siri's request to go shopping and said to her, it's just right. You accompany me to the monastery in the afternoon and we will pick up Teresa. Teresa has been running to the monastery frequently recently, which makes Peter a little depressed. Could it be that this daughter likes God more than herself? Okay, Siri happened to be free and nodded in agreement. In the afternoon, Peter drove Siri and Zatanna to the monastery. Zatanna heard that Peter had another daughter, and driven by curiosity, she must go to see the new girl. Her name is Bayonetta, Zatanna asked Peter curiously, and she is a girl with talent and magic. Well, she is a little witch. If you have time, you can teach her how to use her magical power and talent. Peter asked Zatanna to teach Teresa magic. Of course, after all, many of Raven's magics are taught by me, so I am half her teacher, Zatanna said here, proudly puffing up her chest. Sitting in the back seat, Siri asked Zatanna, whose magic is better between you two now? Zatanna was immediately stunned by the question. You should ask Peter. Zatanna passed a ball to Peter. Facing the gazes of the two women, Peter looked forward, pretending not to see the expressions of the two. Seeing Peter pretending to be stupid, Zatanna and Siri could only let him go for the time being. In fact, Zatanna herself didn't care much about this issue. As for whether Raven's strength has surpassed hers now, whether she has surpassed hers or is stronger than hers, it can't change the fact that she is her teacher. Half an hour later, the car stopped outside the monastery. Peter, Zatanna, and Siri just entered the monastery when they heard a hey-ha sound. The courtyard of the monastery echoed with a crisp sound of wooden swords colliding with wooden stakes. Zatanna and Siri looked at each other. Peter led the two in, and what they saw was Teresa holding a wooden sword, stepping on the wooden stakes and swinging the sword to chop the shaking wooden stakes. Next to her was Lin standing and watching her performance. Teresa stood on one foot on the top of the shaky wooden stake. Her muddy boots slipped on the surface of the log, but she suddenly turned around as if she was stepping on flat ground. Turn around, she imitated Siri's tone, tapped the protrusion of the wooden stake with her toes, and flipped vertically to another wooden stake. The hem of her blue skirt fluttered, revealing two pistols fixed on her waist. As Peter's figure emerged from the arch, Teresa's tense calf muscles trembled imperceptibly. She forcibly reversed the action that was originally intended to land on the eastern wooden stake and changed it to a more difficult reverse kick. The slippery surface of the wooden stake made Teresa's boot slip suddenly. Then Teresa's body lost balance and was about to fall off the wooden stake. Seeing her new friend about to fall off the wooden stake like this, Elaine exclaimed, "Watch out!" Elaine subconsciously ran over to catch her. Peter, who had just entered the door, was completely stunned by the scene in front of him. Isn't this Siri's unique skill when she was a child? He remembered the beginning of The Witcher 3, when little Siri was doing balance training on the Plum Blossom Pile formation in Kaer Morhen. Could it be that this move was taught by Siri? Seeing Peter's peripheral vision, Siri coughed with a guilty conscience. This unique training method was indeed taught to Teresa by her. Unexpectedly, this naughty child not only learned the body movements and the reformed cat skull steps that he taught her, but also learned the scene of falling from the wooden pile from him. Teresa was about to fall from the wooden pile. Huh? Peter's low shout and the sound of the wooden sword breaking through the air sounded at the same time. Teresa instinctively swung out a spinning slash at the moment of falling. This move, which should have been performed on the ground and the sword technique that Siri taught her, was now used by her while hanging upside down. When the sword tip brushed past the wooden pile on the west side, a few strands of black hair had been cut off by herself. Bang! The cold wind with the smell of grass passed by her ears, and the expected pain did not come. Surprised, Teresa opened her eyes and saw that she was already in Peter's arms. Peter's steel-like arm was holding her waist, and his other hand firmly grasped the wooden sword that she was about to let go. "Daddy." Teresa could clearly smell the scent of farm daisies on Peter's clothes, mixed with the scent of pine resin in the monastery. Balance training is not a circus, Bayonetta. Peter shook his head and placed the stunned Teresa on the edge of the pile formation, and his fingertips brushed over the fresh sword marks on the wooden pile on the west side. Although this little girl is small, she has already mastered the sword skills, and her steps are also very agile and sensitive. She is indeed a witch born to cut people. "Sorry, Daddy, I will be careful next time. It was just a little accident just now." Teresa, who reacted, apologized to Peter a little embarrassedly. The embrace that gave her a warm and safe feeling made her reluctant to leave. After helping her to adjust her crooked glasses, Peter put her down. "Next time you have an accident and your dad isn't around, you'll fall hard, so you have to have an adult by your side to practice like this." Peter scratched her nose. Holding Peter's hand, Teresa wanted to say something else, but soon remembered that she hadn't introduced her good friend to her father yet. So she took Peter's hand, walked to Elaine, who was a little uneasy, and said to Peter, "Dad, this is my new friend. Her name is Joan of Arc." Joan of Arc? Hearing that the little girl with shoulder-length black hair in front of him was called Joan of Arc, Peter was stunned. Which Joan of Arc? Chapter 850, The Dance of Flames. 3 Fire Demons. In addition to the real-world Joan of Arc and the famous Saint Joan of Arc in the Type Moon world, there is also a Joan of Arc in the Bayonetta world. The Joan of Arc in Bayonetta is also a member of the Shadow Witch clan. In the Vigrid region 500 years ago, Joan of Arc was a childhood sweetheart that Teresa had known since she was a child. When she was a child, she met Teresa, an abandoned child of the Witch clan. Teresa was rejected by everyone in the clan at that time, but Joan of Arc did not despise her. After that, Joan of Arc became friends with Teresa and the two established a solid friendship. Later, during the witch hunt, the clan began to select the guardian of the dark left eye. After adulthood, Joan of Arc had the opportunity to lead the witch clan. In the test, she had to fight another witch in the tribe. Despite the elders' insistence on prohibition, she chose Teresa as her opponent. During their battle, the angels attacked the tribe, and Teresa got the left eye. In order to protect her friends and the left eye, Joan of Arc sealed it in a ruby and hid it in the lake. 500 years later, she was captured and controlled by Balder. Although Joan of Arc was controlled, her consciousness still existed. She had to endure it for Bayonetta, and often attacked Bayonetta and provoked her. Later, Joan of Arc released Balder's control and helped Bayonetta defeat the Lord God. Joan of Arc in Bayonetta is heroic and often rides a motorcycle in the sky. With the blessing of Joan of Arc's magic, this motorcycle can fly over the eaves and walls, go up to the sky and into the earth, and is also used by her to hunt angels. Now it seems that this well-behaved black-haired little girl is not like the witch who can ride a motorcycle up to the sky and into the earth. However, Peter soon thought of the parallel world of Bayonetta, where there are also different versions of Joan of Arc, for example, Joan of Arc in yellow and Joan of Arc of righteousness. Does every Bayonetta meet her own Joan of Arc? Even in the DC world, there is also a Joan of Arc? What version of Joan of Arc will this Joan of Arc in his own universe be? Peter touched his chin and fell into deep thought. Soon he pulled back his thoughts, coughed, and asked Teresa, "Is she really called Joan of Arc?" "That's a name that only belongs to us two, but you can call her Daddy, because you are not someone else." "Daddy," Teresa whispered to him. Peter was stunned for a moment, then touched her hair with some emotion. This little cotton jacket is quite considerate. Peter talked to Joan of Arc for a few words, and then he knew that her real name was Elaine Belloc. Joan of Arc, who was a little nervous, said to Peter, "Sir, are you a superhero?" "No, I'm not, I'm just a farmer." Peter smiled and said to the curious Joan of Arc, "I'm not the kind of person who wears tights and flies around in the sky." "Are you talking about Batman, sir?" Joan of Arc's eyes sparkled. "Batman doesn't wear tights." Peter gently patted her shoulder. Just as he was talking to Joan of Arc, 3 old women walked in from outside the church. The 3 old women, dressed quite fashionably, walked in from outside the church with cigarettes in their mouths. As the 3 walked in, Peter stood up and his expression became serious. He smelled the sulfur and death of hell. Zatanna also felt that the newcomers were not friendly, and her expression became serious in an instant. The 3 old women soon found Zatanna standing outside the courtyard. After seeing Zatanna, the 3 stopped. Then, In the shocked eyes of Teresa and Jean, the three old women tore off their clothes. Rip. As the clothes were torn apart, the skin on the other party was also torn apart at the same time. The strips of cloth and skin were thrown into the air with the movements of the three people. The red naked skin was exposed, and the old woman also changed from an old woman with loose skin to a seductive exposed girl. Then a flame boomed and burned on the three people. The three people were covered with flames, and the hair on their heads was replaced by flames. The heat of the burning air was spread, and they stood there and looked at Zatanna, who was stunned. "Are you Zatanna, the burning woman, who was a circle larger than the other two demons?" asked Zatanna. Without waiting for Zatanna to reply, she said directly, "Just a rookie, I don't know the etiquette, not enough evidence." After the leading woman finished her evaluation of Zatanna, she said to Zatanna, "I am Melissa, and I have been ordered to take your life." Zatanna, Peter, who was standing next to him, was a little surprised at the scene in front of him. The three women in front of him were obviously three demons from hell. When did Zatanna provoke the demons from hell like Zha Kang? Boom! The three female demons threw out flames and hit Zatanna fiercely. Although Zatanna was a little surprised, she quickly reacted and quickly retreated to avoid the impact of the flames. Facing the enemy who suddenly came to her door, she was unusually calm. She stood up and said to the demons, "Although I have a premonition, it seems that today will not be easy." Melissa looked at her coldly. "You are not a qualified villain. Mammon believes that you can still die in our hands." Mammon. Zatanna was slightly surprised to hear this name. "Huh? Well, I don't know how I offended the greedy god of hell, but my performance tickets were sold out a few hours ago, so it is impossible for me to apologize to him, and it seems that I have to collect the high temperature allowance in advance today." "Siri, sir, don't interfere. I can deal with them myself." As Zatanna spoke, she pulled off her silk gloves, and the spell condensed into a nice blue halo on her fingertips. Siri was originally thinking about helping, but after hearing what the other party said, she looked at Peter helplessly. Peter gave her a calm look. He believed that Zatanna could handle it. Melissa launched the attack first. The fire of this fire spirit leader, his braids were like lava pythons, and the air exploded wherever he passed. Zatanna leaned back to avoid the fatal whip, and quickly drew the ironic rune with her right hand. Magic fire extinguishes the wind. Ice spikes burst out from the void, but vaporized into white mist the moment they touched the flaming braids. "Do you think ordinary fire will work on us?" Another fire spirit laughed wildly from the right, and pushed out a rotating fire tornado with both hands. The hem of Zatanna's cloak was instantly rushed back. Faced with this scene, Zatanna immediately retreated. She turned around and threw out the tarot cards, and the cards refracted the sunlight in the firelight, forming a gust of wind. The gust of wind wrapped around the card array to form a barrier, deflecting the fire tornado to the open space next to it. A fire spirit seized this opportunity and rushed forward, with the burning claws only half an inch away from Zatanna's throat. The magician suddenly showed a sly smile, and the obsidian on the ring on his left hand shattered with a sound, a mirror double. The real Zatanna appeared behind the fire elf, and the emerald earrings lit up with spells. Boom! The space crack was like a knife blade, and the fire elf's right wing broke with a sound, and the burning feathers scattered into thousands of sparks. Seeing her companion injured, Melissa screamed shrilly, and the ground of the church suddenly shook, and flames sprang out of her hands like poisonous snakes. Zatanna saw the fire getting bigger, and was about to rise into the air in shock. But her action was a step slower, and with a boom the flames controlled by the devil were thrown into the air. Zatanna dodged hard. But the moment she dodged, a ball of hellfire hit her mouth. Bang! Zatanna, whose mouth was on fire, fell to the ground in an instant. Ugh! Zatanna covered her mouth and rolled on the ground in pain. Look at her writhing in pain. Her mouth is on fire. Let's see how she can cast a spell. The female demon Melissa stood on the air, looking down at Zatanna, and said coldly, "Master Mammon will be very happy." Seeing Zatanna being attacked, she was about to collapse. She gritted her teeth and was about to take out the gun that Mommy gave her from her waist and attack the three firemen. Unexpectedly, before she could act, a ball of silver energy suddenly came out. Peter suddenly sent out the rune, extinguishing the hellfire in Zatanna's mouth. Seeing Peter, whom she didn't know and had always ignored, take action, Melissa was stunned. She looked at Peter with some doubts. "Who are you? You actually obstructed the plan of the great Master Mammon." "Mammon? That greedy devil." Peter shook his head. "The world I rule has vast mysteries. Even Lucifer will not be as unreasonable as you when he sees me, As Peter said this, his mind moved, and an invisible space pressure attacked the 3 female demons. Then the ground collapsed with a bang. In the collapsed ground, a pair of giant hands grabbed the 3 women who were unable to react in time. The giant hands summoned by Peter from the dream world using the ruby grabbed the 3 shocked female demons and threw them heavily to the ground. Joan of Arc was hiding behind Siri. When she saw Peter defeat the fire demon with ease, her eyes were dulled. Uncle Patrick said he was a farmer. How come she had never seen such a powerful farmer? Joan of Arc's eyes were full of disbelief. After throwing the 3 female demons out, Peter did not continue to attack, but said to Zatanna on the side, "Zioza, use your water magic." No, ordinary water is useless to them." Zatanna shook her head. "Then use holy water. Don't forget that this is a monastery." Hearing Peter's reminder, Zatanna's eyes lit up instantly. "Yes, ordinary water doesn't work, but holy water that has been recited by the priest should work." She immediately flew into the air and flew into the church. After Gloria, who was hiding in the church, read the Bible for the water in the fountain, she controlled the water that had become holy water and rushed towards the 3 female demons. Devil fire extinguishes holy water. With the impact of the holy water, the 3 female demons screamed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.